The Judas Cross, Chapter 1. Whale song echoed musically and surreal, dredged up from the dark ocean depths. It oscillated in the currents and movements created by the huge mammals. Conrad's dream rolled rhythmically fore and fro. Then suddenly, with a huge hypnic jerk, he awoke, gasping to the surface, realizing then that the whale song serenade was in fact the loud squealing brake drums of a trash bin truck, its sounds being distorted from distant streets by the gusting wind that gushed and gasped through the ginnels and the garrets. Another heavy wave of reality crashed onto Conrad's conscience, as dustbin lids symboled into his sensitive sobriety. Oh, this temporal timpani heralded what was the stark arrival of a very unwanted Monday morning. Conrad scented the air, his lips snarling back like those of a dog that had caught the scent of its spoor. The room reeked sweet of Snap's toffee liqueur. Nostrils flaring, Conrad cursed at the stench of his own stupidity. Then, realizing that something was terribly wrong, he instinctively grabbed both for his head and his genitals simultaneously, whilst barking out a sharp yelp, only to find that he had been shaved to a sharp stubble. It was now grating his soft, milky white hands, as though they were made of cream cheese. For a moment he dare not breathe. Panic tingled into his stomach as sticklebacks schooled up against his heart and then feathered their fins behind his lungs. Oh, mouthing a silent mime, the words, oh, dry to sand. Conrad shook his head from side to side, trying to loose the numbness, stupefaction. But nothing came forth, not even the slightest spark. The synaptic dark. Oh, anything to illuminate his cranium. This liquid libation lobotomy was complete. Total DIY drink amnesia had yet again been achieved. Tentatively, Conrad placed his planters down onto the bedroom floor, flirting footsie in amongst the debris of the previous night's booze blitzkrieg, feeling as nervous as a child who's taking its first barefoot steps into a rock pool. Conrad stepped and then cried out as his fleshy instep found an urchin bottle top. Howling agony, he hopped onto the hedgehog of keys with the same foot, collapsing into calamity. Oh, then he mud-skipped across the floor, flotsam, breast-stroking it aside as he swam towards the handle. He heaved up, tomb-raided from the death of darkness into the living room of light. He hurried the balloon-sized bladder, but then statued at the mirror. He'd been struck by a Medusa reflection. He looked at the unrecognizable figure. He'd been made up as a clown, a mask of makeup painted thickly onto his face and down his chest, eyes almost puffed shut. His hair, why had they cut off all his hair? Oh, he looked at his shaved head and realized that the callous deed had been done by someone who cared not for detail. His treasured locks lay everywhere. He picked up his precious ponytail from the toilet bowl, squeezing out the urine. He whispered silently with venom, "Bitch!" Oh, Conrad stood stiff-legged, urinating against the pan of the toilet, pissing against the porcelain. He realized that the 2 days of revelry had been condensed down into 2 pints of liquid acidity. It began to bathe his battered face, wincing as it maced, looking. To the perspex mirror he found a scarlet mask of sunburn under the heavy makeup. Oh, fantastic. A face finished in vermilion, a head scalped white into an absolute delight. Conrad patched himself to a semblance of sensibility, placing his hat upon his glinting head. He tried to conceal this hideous highlight. Then he stepped out under what was a very unforgiving blue sky, looking up towards the jellyfish moon that was swimming by, back to its dark side. He thought to himself, if only I could swim back through sobriety. Oh, to the soft yang from this very cruel yin. Conrad settled onto a stogie and then backfired into a death breath, kicking to keel, swaying in motion sickness. He gasped and grasped onto the steel stanchion, pitching and yawing. He steadied himself with a strong stare onto the still secure skyline. Conrad was now aware that many people were eyeing him with a quiet concern of intrigue, not dissimilar to discovering a Robinson Crusoe wrecked upon the shoreline of sobriety. But instead of finding a man Friday, Conrad found his girl Monday laughing back. Conrad scowled inquiry, whereupon the girl gestured and then gusted into giggles, mentioning that on the previous night's bus ride he'd boarded and seated himself in the centre aisle, missing his seat completely, and he'd proceeded to pull off his shoes and socks and play with his feet like a baby for the entire journey. Fortunate for Conrad, the bus arrived, glinting back his ghostly palamortis reflection. He thought he'd better start to fabricate and snivel a sob-story spiel of sympathy. His sister, sensible, but doubtless she'd realize, through her saintliness, and probably Bible bash him into a sacred sermon about his need for spiritual sobriety, neither of which he'd practiced or seen for a hell-raising long time. Conrad couldn't remember the last 48 hours. His alcoholic amnesia. Christ, he thought, where had he been? Where was his martini girl? The anytime, anyplace girl. Gosh, was it Medusa, the seducer? Heaven pray, not her. He quickly looked towards his wrists for the binding marks. Oh, thank heaven there were none. He hadn't again been lashed in her dungeon of debauchery. The Judas Cross, Chapter 2. Conrad stepped down from the bus, traversed across the street, and stood overlooking the green acreage as though it be some foreboding jungle. He was interrupted. "Fair-sized square, that's in it, lad. Does that know which patch is thine?" The casual colloquial quips belonged to the Paymaster General, or as Conrad thought of him, the Cabbage Patch Concierge. "I say that, not really dressed for this cape, but again other lad." Conrad felt as conspicuous as a car mechanic in a white-tied dinner suit. He cut back. "Listen, my man, I'm not here to labour in servile serfdom. I leave the triviality of tilling to those who are willing to squander their short, precious gift of life to save but a mere shilling." Conrad shivered slightly, as though he'd been skimmed by a shark. He had the distinct and easy feeling that he was footstepping into a folly. Sister had decided to become some Queen of Green, a boring, born-again Earth Mother. Oh, growing mangy root crops and tie-dyeing her skin and clothing with beetroot juice. Oh, Lord, bring back the days of wine and promiscuity, thought Conrad. His sister had been through many a morph to emerge as a rather grey, mouldy-looking old moth, tattered and torn. He thought possibly her best days were as a sort of a lesbian bisexual butterfly. At least then her girlfriends had been visibly acceptable. Now she just resembled some awful pagan druid in sackcloth. All the excitement seemed to have drained away, along with the colour of her skin, to a rather pale and pallid old maid. Panic Room Roger also looked anemic, as though he'd been fed on milk and kept in a cellar. He was a last resort husband for something sort of scabby from Scarborough. A computer nerd who moved at slow speed and had a delayed satellite speech impediment, as though he was transmitting messages from the moon. Conrad's sisters said, remotely admitted, that Conrad had fried his fuses with LSD back in the days of being a Glastonbury gladiator. So this was it. Monday morning, shelling peas into a communal basket, drinking boiled Darjeeling dust. Wonderful. Still, had everything in place. Seemingly a safe haven, steady routine jobs with nearby school. Triple P perfect lifestyles. Oh, Conrad dreamed sometimes of owning one of those himself, but he knew it was far too late. It was a mystical land. He was a reckless soul. He'd no doubt end up wearing the hangman's noose as a pension necklace. As he thought, the system does not cater for the single men syndrome. It's only the family unit. Society now nurtures. A time of trail-blazing, pioneering spirits were over. The gunslingers were all dead, and the lawmen, well, they were all fat and happy, eating porn flesh in McDonald's. Looking across the nearby wood-burning fire that was crackling and roaring, where the two women also seemed feverishly busy with exertion, he asked his sister, who hadn't yet looked up, "Who are those girls?" "They, my brother, are the Moonshine Girls. They boil everything they boil, everything that they grow. Down into that still there. And then either drink it or share it out with the rest of their beatniks." "Yes, you know, sister, I'm not being funny, but that sounds a pretty good idea, looking at this mangy, mouldy old fruit that you've produced here. What would you know about growing anything but debt and deceit, brother, eh? Oh, sister of mine, please. I've sown enough seed to barren soils of sin to grow fields of forget-me-nots. You haven't a clue on anything of cultivation, of any kind, just fast living. And fool, no doubt end up in a fatalized finish." "Oh, dear God! What have you done? You look terrible. What's happened to your hair, your face?" "Oh, don't tell me she's attacked you again. She has, hasn't she? That manic midget of yours is... Oh, you look insane." "Sister, you so soothe my stress, placate my pain, but really, could we massage my mind another time, eh? You know you haven't got a clue, have you, about life? Look at you, the realities of it. The state of you. No hair, no eyebrows, battle-scarred, reeking of booze. Why don't you just settle down and follow my lead? Oh, you've got to be joking. Are you hinting that I should also be suffocating in suburbia, yeah, under a mound of happy nappy sand, eh? Sister, leave it out. The creation of life I leave to the birds and the brave. Nothing to do with it. That, my dear brother, is just you altogether, isn't it, eh? Running scared from the realities of any sort of responsibility, eh? No, sister. I am a persecuted, petrified single white male. A terribly endangered species, don't you know? Especially around this jungle land. Oh, you must learn to share your space. Stop being such a heterophobic hedgehog, brother. I think you'll find that it's kind of phobia I'm terrified of. Anything having some sort of Amazonian tribal rule over me. That's it, isn't it? You're terrified of women. You know, it's a simple Freudian expulsion theory, you know. You show all the traits, the second stage of the psychosexual development. You do know that, don't you? Oh, will you stop it with Freud? This Freud, the man was a sexual psychopath, a fornicating fiend. He'll be locked away today. God, he slept with most of his patients under hypnosis. Oh, he was a strong, charismatic genius, a leader of complete originality. Unlike you, I might add. He was a perverted public nuisance. Him and his offspring, obsessed with mortal flesh and blood. Oh, you're dreadful, brother. You are a dreadful man. But you still fall into the anal expulsion theory of Freud. Total excessive emotion. You realize that, do you? Sister, why don't you try a little transcendental meditation with Jung? Eh? Forget this old patriot perversion. Jung. Oh. By the way, how are the newly acquired spouse sacraments holding up these days, eh? Monogamy and monotony. They go together. Sounds totally dreadful to me. Spice of life. That's the thing you need. Oh, remember our days of shag-festing, sister. Swilling ale and shag-festing. Oh. Brother, you're dreaming. We're out of time. The days of running around playing at musical beds are over. You need to find yourself a Fraulein. Build a nest of warm and downy contentment. You'd love it. Would I, Heather, over my dead and beautiful body? Me, servile civility? No, thank you. Tending some fat Fraulein with an outgrowing tongue and ingrained toenails. Oh, come on, sister. You're sideways from sanity or sobriety. That's the problem, isn't it? You think that all women are going to end up as our mother superior. Oh, come on, sister. There is a matriarchal martyr in all women. You know that. You played the part. Come on, Joan of Arc, Queen Boudica, Christ. You played it long enough. Steel braziered breastplate with a spare-ribbed sword in hand. You were the Women's Liberation Front, war-crying at every puffs parade. You were the one, leading them. You really do hate women, don't you? Because our mother and father slightly used you in their domestic train war as a battlefield or a motif or something. Are you joking here? Oh, come on, brother. You think every relationship is going to end in that war-torn way? Sister, darling, have you forgotten my Titanic love boat? You know, where everyone was left clinging to a piece of romantic wreckage, still clutching onto that beating blooded heart. Oh, here we go again, eh? A poor me prevarication song. You know, if you'd stop with the Chardonnay suicides every day, a relationship may stand a chance of survival. Sobriety is not the answer. I know you keep... In fact, blinded by filth or blinded with faith. It's both of them are a relief from this tedium of... the stark tedium of life's cold, cruel reality. You do realise that, don't you, sister? Brother, me and Roger do not drink a drop, and we are extremely happy. Oh, come on, sister, leave it out. If you left out the lies, there wouldn't be a life left. What's that supposed to mean? We're the parish's perfect people. What do you mean? What? I can't believe this pail of piss that you're now pouring me out. Sister, you've just dropped out of a 5-year lesbian plan and parachuted your all of a sudden heterosexual arse into a panic room with Dodger. to build this new baby farm. How dare you? I happen to be the perfect wife now. What? You've got that many sexual side salads on the go. It's just a matter of time before the main course arrives. What are you talking about? Oh, is the cruel word, isn't it? Brother Blackton. Always there, aren't you, with that mouth dagger ready to stab at tender moment, eh? Oh, anyway, talking all things back, where is Dodger? I suppose he's doubtless building another Advertar world. Let's face it, he hasn't seen the real one in a decade. Oh, you're spiritually wicked. You need almost exorcising. You need an exorcism, that's what you need. Roger likes you. He worries about you. Yes, and I worry about Dodger. When you've returned to the island of Lesbotica, to your Amazonian tribe, I shall doubtless be left here picking up his pieces and body parts. Why do you think I'm going to be leaving Dodger? Roger! He's my rock. A rock in a hard place, more like. How can you go, sister, from sort of finger-licking Dixie Chicking to some toad in the hole, eh? How do you do that? Oh, you are just beautiful, aren't you, brother? Always. Why don't you always navigate to the negative, eh? Well, that's where you can flounder yet another love boat. Possibly mine, on some more rocks. The Judas Cross, Chapter 3. Oh, so it's me. So I'm rolling the negative numbers to reach the natural sort of ground zero in my crap game life. It's me, is it? Yes, it pretty much is, brother. You should be more sort of positive. Have a good karma. Think beautiful thoughts. Why don't you start yoga or tai chi or something? Mix more. Get a hobby that involves other humans. Sister, I did. If you've forgotten, I'm subscribing to 4 dating sites. The only thing that's happened is my profile has been cloned onto Manhunt. Or somebody's scratched it on every bog-cum brothel door. You know, brother, you may have to stop slaughtering the truth. It's ever so raw and bloody, far too negative for everyone to stomach. Why don't you use just a few white lies? Get it ghostwritten. I'll do it for you. Oh, very good. You mean we'll just falsify everything and sort of pull a pretty superficial skin over the entire truth within, yes? And then what? What am I attracting then? What? You're attracting a buyer. Your description is a car crash. Total damage goods. Your self-deprecating description, it sounds like some high-mileage Hackney carriage, a burnt-out clutch. Oh, so I should think of myself then as just some sort of material white goods, eh? Fridge, a car, man for sale, one careful owner. Oh, bravo. That's basically it, brother, yes. Why don't you let me write it for you? I know what women want. Oh, I bet you do, sister. But then again, why not? A little bit of lesbian girl bait. Certainly had more flange bolted onto you than me. We won't use the normal sites. There's a new meat market for prime cuts. But you'll need a video profile, which of course I can choreograph for you. It's no problem. That's a bit of cheaty, isn't it? What do you mean? Well, it's not really over the top. It's more under the bottom they want to see. More a sort of 360 pan, slow pan with all the juicy bits, eh? Oh, sister, forget it. This is another one of your pseudo sexual slave sales, isn't it? Forget it. Listen, why don't I just get on all fours? Have a dog collar on you, put me in chains. You can do a 360 with me as a little dog. Walk me around, eh? Now that, brother, is a seller. Even I will buy you. Forget fagging and flogging. This piece of man meat is not going into any sexual slave sale. I want a normal girl, sister. Not some sadistic squawk, a Maori man-eater. You know, probably better scrubbing round the video anyway, because looking at this profile, this battered, mildewed mask you've acquired, God, brother. You know, you need to ease back on the bottle and the throttle. See those lines? See, they're not laughter lines. See those cracks? They're turning into axe marks. That liquid narcotic of yours is dangerous. For your wealth and your health, ease back. Hey, Lady Saliva, you've forgotten something. Not so long ago, you were the one bareback riding Mustang Sallies full of fairy dust. Just because you've eaten some castration cake at the altar stake, become this new born-again Christian of sorts, wasn't long ago, remember. Those days, brother, are over. Thankfully, they're behind me. And I suggest at your age you rein in the beast too. I'll do no such thing. Look at my friends. Docile domesticated dingoes. Look at them. Oh, and I suppose a miniature man-pig, half house-trained, is where successful members of society would style themselves, is it? I am semi-successful. Much more than most of my period. You are semi-skimmed. Low fats is where you're at. You've never been full fat or full potential. Always the professional pretender, my brother. A weak second. I move to my own groove. Never mind this peer pressure cooker simmering everything down to the same khaki-coloured soup. Oh yes, I can see that. All hail to the conquering Caesar, who has achieved absolutely zero. I've achieved a smattering of happiness and contentment, which is more than most, including this house of charades that you're running. Brother of mine, you have no idea of what life should be, and you will probably never will have, due to your mind being broken. Without realizing you are involved in distractions, mind disassociations, fugues. You are a classic F44.1 continuous. Do you know that? Oh, sister, please, will you give it a rest with this little shrinky-dinky? Stop trying to mentally sort of mould me to one of your cranial cast-offs. All shrinks are cranks. They have to be crazy. They're in the company, aren't they? Let's face it. Brother, do you know you're my favourite little nutjob? I could study you forever. Your mind is like a jazz band. All the instruments are playing different tunes, but somehow melodic sound and syncopation is achieved. Or in your case, mental synaptic syncopation is achieved. That, my dear darling sister, is due to decades of domestic terrain warfare. If you've not noticed, I am suffering from parental traumatic stress disorder. Have you not noticed? Oh. Well, I suppose, yes, I did possibly miss all the action, due to me being second in the firing line, arriving into the theatre of war, as you've put it, 10 years later. But I don't know, I was a little malice in Thunderland, I must admit, but I suppose you did soak up all the flack. Too damn right I did, Sesame, Sesame Street. Slush puppies are us, you. God. Okay, we don't need to McFlurry it too much. I had a little more cranberries and cream here and there. Cream? You spoiled little bitch. You sit there with your Empress syndrome, crying crocodile tears into a swimming pool, whilst I couldn't even take a number 2 without my father's infanticidal tendencies blowing the bog door off. Oh, let's not start all that again, roasting the old chestnuts. I'm sick of hearing you roast them. I'll call Dodger. You can have a little chat with him, eh? Don't bother calling Dodger. Leave him to his old... Leave him in his own Asperger's syndrome. He doesn't have Asperger's. Just slightly autistic, that's all. Slightly autistic. He is an antisocial Aspie. A typical DSM-5. Anyway, leave him to his second self-alt ego. Leave him there. Let him build another avatar world, eh? Well, probably better that way. He hasn't seen the real one for decades himself. Well, at least he lets his out to play. Yours is so caged up, so tight. It's almost become demonic. I told you, if you don't let it out, one day it will either explode or implode. Darling sister, you seem to have forgotten something. Your little boiling bunny rabbit? Don't come me with your delusional disorders. I know I'm a semi-skim psychopath, with sometimes the red eye on standby, but you, without a doubt, sister, you were once the full Jekyll and Hyde. The Judas Cross, Chapter 4. So obviously, sister, you think I should also begin to play happy families, mumsy-dadsies, and it's going to suit me. Slow me down to a similar sprog speed to yourself. It's the natural chain of events, brother, passing your DNA across into the beautiful, immortal way. Yes, moving from matrimony to maternity on towards the final eternity. Fantastic. Stop barking up the wrong drain pipe, sister. There'll be no bird's nest to be built on the top of this. There's far too much smoke and fire. Brother, it's the most wondrous thing, a mortal miracle. The only one that you'll ever see or feel. You must be part of it. I see. The embryonic miracle. Sister, the only embryos I really want to be part of are the ones that come from chickens, that are served or boiled or fried on toast. There's no getting across to you, is there? Just how beautiful this caring, sharing, divine love could be. Do you know the righteousness of reproduction? It gets so biblical, this birth. Everyone seems to believe it to be the divine second coming, delivered by the sacred stalk. No, brother of mine, always think negative and so sublime. Why don't you give it I see. So I should get myself a prouder personality and join you, join your perpetual pretense, eh? Allow myself to be drawn into this parental pantomime. I think, sister, Walt Disney World and Legoland is all yours. I will stay here, thank you very much. Brother, that's just you, isn't it, all over? Lonely on planet Purgatory. Il problema en paradiso, eh? You truly are a patriarch of pessimism, spreading your NIMBY nihilism over the rest of us. We've got such joie de vie to share. You guys, your counterfeit creation, basically, all it is a need of procreation. Take you and Dodger. You didn't need to procreate. You'd still be an armed Venus, a vulva huntress. Only because you wanted babies. It's just an instinctive inertia that I haven't got, remember. Thank you so much, Dr. Doolittle. Has it not occurred to my little meat-eating monkey? Civilization has caught up and passed these seemingly cave-dwelling creatures. It's given way to a beautiful ultra-sensory perception. You need to let some of this new light into your dingy self-deception. I see. This is rich coming from you, isn't it? Sat in your crystal palace, firing slingshots of insight at me, eh? Look, brother, you're floating around on a huge iceberg of introspective delusion. 9/10 of your problem lay hidden in the depths of your own subconscious. Why don't you allow me to analyze you, using a little of my hypnotherapy? Forget it, you freak. I'm not having you messing around in my mind. The last thing I need is to be tuned into some domestic appliance. A voice activator to another Miss Piggy that you've sexually synced me with. No, thank you. I've seen your hypnotherapy at work. Look at the state of Dodger. He may as well be a watering can or a toaster. It bears no resemblance to the flesh and blood human that he once was. Just an adoring android, synced to your voice. You fool. A little hypnothetic suggestion would help you, heal you. Yes, I can just imagine the cranial cookies spawning in Sprogsville, or the mortal miracle made easy. Oh, sister, you're not getting your hands on me, mesmerizing my fragile mind. Forget it. I can help you, brother, to to overcome your Cinderella effect. No, sister, what you can do is probably syncopate the software, load an app or two. You should know of all people. Can't do anything with a hard drive. It stays exactly the same. Brother. Oh, brother. Well, it's strange you should mention the app. Downloads, hard drives, because my hypnotherapy crew and me, learned colleagues, have come together to produce a CD and an MP3. We've called it Happy Hypno. It's on magicmeditations.com. Oh, dear God. You're not telling me that your crew of cranks has condensed something down onto Dr. Google? By Beelzebub. Not for the poor unsuspecting people to self-shrink their brains on YouTube. So wonder you haven't all been sued. Don't be silly. It's all the rage now. Magic meditations go live 3 times a day. There's early bird breakfast brain, midday meditations, and suppertime soul soother. My. You really are serious, aren't you? Probably you should call it cranksandcuckoos.com. I can't believe your hippy-dippy holistic crew are now boiling brains down for breakfast. Somebody ought to stop this. We talk about this meddling with minds as it's some sort of creative cooking, sprinkling coriander into the collective consciousness. Our seminars are carried out by qualified teachers and technicians. It's a gentle caressing of confidence. It's kindly served up to people. Make it sound like mapping a car's ECU. 4 billion years of evolutionary brain. And you guys are going to upgrade it over croissants and coffee. Heaven help the human race. Oh, brother, why don't you get with our beat? I see. Just get with the beat. This groovy beat. You and your cranks. Just popped it together. What does it actually do, eh? Well, I've just explained. We all eventually become calm and synchronized to the feel-good frequency. Shazam! Shazam! Oh, fantastic. Just how many meditating members have you tuned into this feel-good frequency, sister? Oh, millions. India alone has more than 50 million. You must try it. Come with us tomorrow. It's yogi on cool karma and how to antifreeze your anxiety. An easy start to the day. Come on, do it, brother, do it. Just music to my ears. Listening to yogi with his worn-out words of wisdom, regurgitated rhetoric. That's all I want to start the day with. Yes, such a negative Buddhistic. Come on, brother, you'd love it. So, sister, I love you dearly, but the birthing bath isn't for me. My morning starts with a brace of woodbines and a cough and a curse over all creation. It's as good a mantra chant as you'll get. Brother, we have got a lot of work to do with you. Rubbish. We've got a lot of work to do with yourselves. All shrinks need shrinks. It's an ever-increasing circle, like a thrown stone into a still pool of sanity. I mean, how much does this all cost, this tinkling with the tet? Well, roughly after the freemium, it's about £12 a month. £12 a month. But it's a very pacifying periodical. It's not about the money. £12 a month. To listen to some prosaic Prozac. And then you're left petrified at the paywall. Till next month when Madam X comes and reads your mind again. Why do you always navigate to the negative? This is a positive periodical. It's a perpetual prescription with no pills. Just a waffle wizard chanting shrink spiel. Feel good fun for people who are ebbing to the emotional sunless side of the magnetic moon. What a crock of shite. They made us wear some magnetic underpants and moon their electric arse to the moon. The Judas Cross, Chapter 5. Soul Sisters and Earth Mothers. Remember when you all used to be bloodletting banshees until finding this post-natal nirvana. Now suddenly the whole world has got to worship this natal star with you. All become this Miss Mediocrity. Oh, you used to burn your bras, and good heavens, I'd have thrown my jockstrap into the fire with you at that stage. How's that? You, brother, are a jockstrap. That's why no woman would ever want to come near you, apart from that mad Jap, if indeed she is a woman. How is she these days? Oh, sister, what I can't understand about that silly girl. She's so cavalier with fidelity, which to me, of course, is passion poison. To her, it seems to be a nymph's narcotic. She can't get enough of it. Trust you to find a pygmy dwarf with Pick's disease. There's nothing wrong with the girl's frontal lobe. It's the booze. In sobriety, she's Wonder Woman. You maniac. That manic midget of yours also has the added advantage of not even being able to metabolize booze, and so it kindles a liquid lobotomy into some sort of hijacked amygdala, always ending in this rampant, rabid rabbit. She's a DSM-4, 303-90, sexual schizophrenic. You stop it with the numbers. The girl just needs to give up the booze. It's simple. 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 You've forgotten last week. She arrived pissed, smoking a J, and tried to seduce a pass from a terrified female examiner whilst learning to drive, and then accused her of being some sort of French-kissing fascist because her advance has failed. You only see the Mr. Hyde side. She's lovely and funny in sobriety. Well, it certainly turns testosterone when Mr. Masculine comes out to play. I mean, look at Christmas past. She locked you both into handcuffs and chains and tried to starve you to death in the cellar. What's that all about? Hey, you were given a police caution at your hospital bedside. Have you forgotten? She's a delinquent dipsomaniac, an F10/17, with a couple of 305s thrown in for good measure. There you go again, rolling the numbers. It's just nobody's. They're not numbers. To you, they're just DSM or ICD codes. Oh, that's rich coming from a perfect 301/81, eh? I am happy with me. That's all that matters. Whatever your dice roll, it means nothing to me. Keep your numbers. I am flesh and blood, not some loony lottery score. It seems to me like the whole world has have, well, the more numbers they have, the more you and everyone else thinks about them. I'm not one of your mental members, okay? Everybody has DSM codes. You wouldn't be human otherwise. Look, sister. There are no codes on board my computer, okay? It's fine. If it begins to malfunction, I will call you my favourite little mind mechanic. Then you can come and tinker with my Ted. How's that? Oh, why don't you just let me try some of my chromatic juju against you? Oh, please, sister, I'm not a baby. You know what the problem was. The absence of love creates the unwillingness to want love or even need to be loved. That is why you, my spoiled sibling brat, became a fully rounded human being, whereas I, abandoned, left for everyone to avail themselves. Brother, you need to move on from this silly scenario of the little boy lost syndrome. Well, that makes two of us, doesn't it? How about you moving on from this crazy Wendy syndrome and trying to mother me, eh? Trying to motherment over me all the time. Fine. You can go to the dogs or rats, wherever you want to go. Do as you please. You know very well what happened and why. Well, then let's talk about your abandonment, your so-called dereliction by our dutiful parents, guardians. What? Dutiful? Oh, the ethereal evanishment of Mater and Pater. If only they were truly gone. Those two doppelgangers are still in my head forever. Do you know, I never thought I'd got an older brother. For 20 years I believed myself to be an only child. Well, I was an only child. You were never mentioned. For nigh on 20 years. Yes, the black sheep. It's sold to the market. To slaughter. Oh, no, dear sister. No, I had to move away in homosexual disgrace. A bisexual brute of a man. And let me tell you, it wasn't time for anyone to be caught in the closet with a grease monkey. What do you mean? How did you meet? Well, became my saviour. I was out on a shopping spree. A nearby village to the base. A few local bullies decided to beat me black and blue. They called it brat basting. They baste you with your own blood, basically. Oh, sounds brutal. Yes, you had to be careful on the back streets. I had strayed from the straight and narrow, the main track, and got myself lost down a dead-end street. They were out on a black finishing Friday, full of fizz. Whilst I was mincing around with my mother's bloody string shopping bag. Anyway, I was cornered, captured, and I was taking a proper bloody beating. Then what? Then Big Kelvin happened, hoving into view, and told the men to leave me and run back home to their little old jungle land. But they circled him, the larger one telling Kelvin to mind his business. It was a threat to his leadership, so, well, I'd never ever seen a bear fight before. Teeth and claws pulled out, blood slathered over leathered skin, torn, gashed, ripped. 6 brutal knockouts. King Kevin was still the big daddy of the block. So did you stay with him? Yes, he took me home and cleaned me up, and it was the first time in my life that someone had showed me attention and affection. We shared space up on Leopard Rock. When did you realize that you were maybe of the purple persuasion? I mean, obviously your body is masculinized, but your brain feminized. That old 47th chromosome. Well, I was having bi-curious thoughts and pubescent peers. Then things began to shapeshift towards a bilingual bisexual flirtation with a French teacher. Precocious, pubescent. And then really my love map sort of limerence was lit up by an officer's wife who engaged me in a little hepaphilia, which then led on to my sort of fag fetish and finished with raptophilia. You engaged in rape and bestiality. No, sister. 'Twas I was perpetrated against me many times. My spoiled sibling sister. I don't believe you. I could have done such a thing. Well, they always say incest is a perverted pursuit for all the family, do they not? No. Tell me now we're here. A secret hiding place. Tell me who it was. In the torture garden. Was it a paedophile's playground or something? Come on, sister, that was a long time ago. I don't really want to go back to the torment of the torture garden. We're here now, so peaceful, living hippie and happy. Take me back, come on, brother. Let me see the torment, the torturer. No, sister, I've warned you about that inside my head. It's not a pleasant place. Not a pleasant place at all. Let's go back. Come on, slowly. 1, 2, 3. The Judas Cross, Chapter 6. Brother, come back! What have you just been doing, little sister? I've warned you about hypnosis, especially on me. Hacking into my head. This gaslighting. What have you just been up to? What have you been up to? Tell me. Nothing. Don't give me that rubbish. What have you done? You know, brother, I complexion of yours would benefit from a little shadow or shade. It's far too stark in this daylight. Never mind the slide dog dialogue. What have you just been doing inside my head? More than you realize, brother. You maybe do have a feminine side. You may have a suffragette, the soul of one, caged up in your cranium. I've told you about gaslighting people's minds. It just brings forth images of imagination. There's nothing under trance or torture that is real. It's all totally unreliable. It's fragments of fantasia. This was much more than that. Brother, everyone had names, positions, loci, logistics. It was real. Everything you were saying, it wasn't the usual jumbled jargon, the salad spiel that you normally get. You enacted their voices perfectly, like you swallowed their souls. They'd be dead inside your head. These past macabre memories, it's almost as though someone has purposely placed them there like a minefield into your memory. It's a technique, for hiding information or suppressing massive trauma. Truth. Sister. We talk rubbish at times. This isn't the Manchurian Project. I'm just your brother. Remember, and we're not starting to rearrange my troubled mind. Because you think you've just heard some poltergeist far away in the potting shed, okay? Please. I'm being serious. Brother, you're going to have to let me unravel this mystery or this long-term problem. There's no mystery. And the problem, my little shrinky-dinky sister, is that I was abused by great-uncle Promiscuity, who, fortunately for all of us, is dead now after topping himself in Pentonville. A perverted old fiend who, when pissed, would have fornicated with a frog. If you'd been around at the time, we'd have sodomized you too. Listen, my beautiful brother. You must let me have a look inside your head. Someone or something is there. It's trapped inside. It has to be released before you can R.I.P. R.I.P. Rip apart a fart more like. You shrinks, you just love it, don't you? Little spooky ESP, Alcatraz amnesia. In you go with your meddling menticide. Tinker, tailor, soldier, spy. Oops, it's all been a lie, but here, have a brand new brain. It's called Brian. Don't be silly. Brother, I am not the Stasi. You think I was going to start some touchless torture, the Zerd song on you. It's gentle. You may be suffering from parental alienation. Your second self is totally out of sync. You've got to prime in your perceptual patterns. What's needed to bring you back into realignment. Just fabulous. Just fabulous, isn't it? And your cognitive contricts, conceptuals, or in your case, contraceptuals. I'd be sprightly sprugged up, wouldn't I, with one of your fat old frog spawners. I only want to have a look and gently search cognitive clues as to why you're so mentally mixed up. I've told you why, darling, I'm mentally mixed up. PTSD, parental traumatic stress disorder, given to me by those two loonies, our dear departed, deviant parents. Riddance to about rubbish. Stop it. Stop saying that. Dear God, who can't even stand for me to take jest from the dead? Heaven help you if you hatch into my mind properly. Listen, brother. You're suffering from so many different things. It's almost possible to know where to begin. There's mind imagination, trauma, repression, false memory syndrome, amnesia, drink. Need I go on? Fabulous. There's a lifetime's work inside my head for you shrinks, isn't there? Okay? You share it out forever. Never stop. I wonder if you have memory implantations. A form of mind hacking. Brain training. Sister, I've told you it's just a broken brain. Fractured by mater and pater. No, brother. Your tabula rasa has been given some sort of cryptic coding. Sort of hidden. Initialization vector. Like a religion. Hardwired. They call it a cryptic nonce, which is quite apt for a child nonce who's been sexually abused. But first, we need to find the psychological pseudo-random key to access all areas. Sister Shrink, surely by now it must have come clear to you that I do not want you to unleash Pavlov's salivating dogs back into my cranium. I know, dear brother, but those red-eyed Baskervillian hounds are never going to stop chasing unless we realize or release them from your soul cage. You seem quite calm and cavalier, don't you, about inducing trauma, especially onto me. You sure there's not a little sadistic Stasi sleeping inside you? As I remember, you weren't averse to a little BDSM on the fet frame. Brother, listen. I'm pretty sure your trauma, or the initialization vector, is hiding or residing in your C2 hippocampal region. And there's probably a lot of it. Similar to, it's amazing how much you can store. It's like a black cabbie. You store the entire streets and places of London. And also people in religion with the black book, of course. You can suppress massive amounts of data. And the brain can keep it completely hidden, dormant. After they've retired, then the cabbies never see it again. But your trauma must be released. Beautiful. So I'm a comatose cabbie or some sort of compressed Christian, am I? Wonderful. Never heard anything so stupid in my life, you crazy dingbat. It's important. It's very, very relative. Can't begin to help you or treat you for this torment without knowing which cranial compartment to start with. That's why I need to gently take a proper look. You, my darling, are not treating me for anything. Oh, negativo. This Circus Maximus, this chariot of clowns that is racing around in my cranium is all down to those members or monsters of my family. I'm hardly going to allow another sibling of Satan to stir up the silt or sediment with her silver spoon, am I? Do you hear? Don't be silly. Me and Daddy didn't do this. It was very beautiful to me. You don't know Matron Pater, their darker side, a Jekyll and Hyde. They never showed it to you, but they certainly showed their shadow side to me. Anyway, sister, we'll leave my mind locked. I don't need you opening a jar of Jove and releasing Pandora's pox. I'll leave it under lock and key. Thank you very much. The Judas Cross, Chapter 7. Listen, brother of mine, cannot leave this problem locked away. It's there for a reason. It's been subliminally stored below the surface of your conscience, deep in the subconscious mind. You've somehow got to lure this little flashback fish out, forward into the dorsal stream. And I think the way we should do it is try and illicitly bait it, barbiturate. Will induce a coma and calm tranquility, and it should tease the timid thing forth. We'll try to tittle it also with a trauma trigger, an initialization, and cause this with a scent or a voice, like a semantic spore of your past adolescence. I should bring these aphotic, shy seahorses glistening into the lucid light, I feel. Oh, really? Well, that's good. Do you know, sister, you talk about this as though you're trout tickling. My mind isn't some sort of aquarium. And what's all this about inducing coma? What's that nonsense? Brother, it's just a simple, total temporal tranquility. It's been used in brain injuries for years and years, decades and decades. healing process. It allows it. Also with drug addicts and alcoholics, it allows those type of people to go cold turkey without feeling the physical effects. Narcosynthesis, it's back. It's all the rage now. Is it indeed? As I remember, it was all the rage with the Nazis and other brutal regimes of torture. They had similar sedatives and sadistic methods, did they not, to extract information, you know? There are many Cabbage Patch people still in vegetable houses, as we speak, being spoon-fed and watered. Oh, stop with the Stasi and fascist factoids. This has been used throughout history to help in the process of traumatic disorders, bring people back from the brink. All the war vets have it. I mean, the famous poets, Sassoon, Owen, Brooke, they all had it too. Oh, well, if it's good enough for the great war dead poets, then of course it must be good enough for me. But didn't they die soon after in Operation Suicide? So their trauma wasn't prolonged, was it? Look, we don't use the same drugs as then. It's not sodium amytal or scopolamine. They're much more amenable drugs now. But we must find out what omens or ghosts are in your machine haunting you. I think administering a simple cathetic abrasion should help you tremendously. Before we get into purging me of purgatory and personality and dredging away my demons, what about you? Surely you must have tried it or need it. Me? Well, I'm fine. Fortunately, I've got Roger to share my fourth dimension with me. Roger, darling, if you haven't yet noticed, is in his own fifth fantasia. After self-synthesizing his brain back in the 70s, the cleaner called LSD, remember? Oh, no. It's you, my dear darling brother, that's got the differing dimension. You're suffering for what's known as pickled head, wet brain. Due to the booze, you must stop drinking. Oh, forget it. I need a wet down or a swill down to face this contrived caprice of yours. You need children and a wife to steady you down, shape you from this reckless, out-of-control lifestyle. Sister, what is it about my libertarian lifestyle that you're so opposed to? Is it some sort of magic mirror of envy I see before me, or what? Oh, brother, good God, you really do have a dormant Dorian Gray syndrome, don't you? Listen, Peter Pan. You see those lines, they're entropy cracks. You're aging faster than all of us put together. You don't die, this selfish singleton. Burn out in an early death. So what should I do? Surrender my single man's status quo and do battle on the domestic terrain war front like yourself, yes? Oh, I can't wait. Brilliant idea. It's not a war. That's where you're very wrong. It's the only way to find true immortality, sentient soulfulness. You'll regret missing out, you know. No, I will not, my little happy nappy nemesis. You may keep your righteous reflections of Homo domestica. I, if you don't mind, will stay in free nomadica manland. You're a fool. There's no getting through to you. Anyhow, what's an old ring pirate's plunder these days? Are you still just with the trisexual triad? Are you back panning through the perverts, silting through the sexual silt again? Don't call her that. She's a fragile flower, you know that. Just a little mixed up. That mad Jap bitch of yours is a banana split. She's a man in a mannequin. That's why you're sleeping in a stab-proof vest and have a membership at A&E. She's been in and out of AA meetings since she was a girl guide. Wake up, brother, and smell the blood. It's yours. Oh, come on. She's a beautiful girl when she's sober. I mean, even you've said that. Sobriety to her is like syphilis to most of the sapiens. They only need to catch it once or twice in a lifetime. Okay, she needs a little work, but it's only superficial. I mean, her structure's sound, I think. You truly are love-blind, brother. The red flags are crackling, and you take a pleasure boat ride with the siren at the helm. Who's driving you onto the rocks? You're a madman. Madman! Oh, thank you, sister. Whilst we're on the subject of madmen, how about old Pater? Any news? News, brother? Don't give me that coy bullshit. News of the last will and testament, the house and contents. More to the point, the precious silver box. You know, the one that I nearly died over. After my father nearly committed infanticide, and I stole the key from around his neck. That one. Oh, there wasn't much in there at all, in the chest at all. Don't, sister, don't start. Don't give me that bullshit. The man nearly beat me to death because of it. Now, what was in there? Just a few old medals and dusty papers, letters, nothing. Right, forget it. I'll need to see everything ASAP. If you're not going to tell me the truth, I'll look at it myself, okay? I'll decide for myself. All right, you might as well know, brother. I was trying to shelter you away from what can only be described as a very cruel, cold, cruel truth, but you might as well have it. I don't need you to sweat over me with some warm, sweet, tender lies. I'm a big boy now. Now, come on, what did you find? Our father, it seems, had a routine, very boring piece, but he had anything but that during the war. He had the most sensational war that you've ever come across. Did you know he was a polyglot, codebreaker, Bletchley Park and what have you, and then was dropped in with the French resistance and then on to other secret services? No, I didn't. Well, I think, I'm sorry to say, but for the sake of espionage, it seems that he was also engaged in polygamy, amongst many other things. So I think reading through the love letters, it seems. Jesus Christ. No wonder it's taken you 6 months, eh? To come and tell me this. That righteous old Pater. Oh, butter wouldn't melt, eh? Been out sowing seed. Oh, how many wives has he had? Well, we think as many as the countries he was dropped into. How many? 4, 5. Oh, God. Oh, Jesus, eh? All for the sake of being undercover, to assume, and under the bed covers, yeah. No, more like. That bloody Judas. What else? Come on. Come on, sister, you might as well tell me. Well, it seems, and I think we're pretty sure after decoding the letters that you're only my half-brother. Half-brother? Well, we think so. I mean, you'll have to take a buccal swab. Wait. Half. Oh, and you've taken all this time. You've taken all this time to tell me that this parochial postmaster of ours, a polyglot and a polygamist. And now I'm just your half-blood brother. Stop shouting. It's taken us 6 months to decode the letters, papers, all. He was a cryptologist, remember. All in code, just in case he got caught, captured. Some of it is in French, resistance. Some in English, but in the Typex cipher. The Italian was in black code, or put together on an Enigma K machine. Russian Falco, and Nema Swiss. So, you know, it goes on and on. It's taken so long. Oh, I can't believe you. You think of telling me then? Just think of telling me now, nearly 6 months later. You were with the Jap machine, remember? We haven't seen you in sobriety for 6 months. Oh, how does a glorified postman become a daring or triple agent? How does that happen? He was the most boring man on the planet. Well, war was a very unforgiving place. You had to be deep undercover, and your cover had to be perfect. Married, kids. What about the wives then? What about the children? What about them? Have you contacted them? Oh no, we can't. It's all in code. We can't find them. And most would be dead anyway. Let's face it. There were millions, tens of millions, littered all over Europe like roadkill refugees. God's truth, you're serious, aren't you? Of course I'm serious. Roger and his boffins at the base spent thousands of hours trying to decipher everything. Do you know, he'd have thought it so dutiful and noble, wouldn't he? My beautiful father, the archetypal Englishman, clone colonial, a cold-blooded reptile, hatched from the slain dragon's egg of empire, tempered by bonhomie buggering, no doubt, sadistic scholarship school, which have sent me to as well. Oh, what a sovereign servant, primed to subjugate, eh? Bringing forth his God's head syndrome of superiority. Do you know, he always had that immaculate inception of oath, supremacy, carrying it like that Trinity warrant of religion to death and beyond. Oh, hypocrite. I cannot believe what a wake of destruction that old reptile has left behind him once again. Miserable life. And my mother, look at her. Totally colluded in this hoax and heist. They couldn't stand to have me around. Now I know why. Now I know why the hatred. It was like living with the bloody Stasi. Every time I came back once a year for a month from that concentration camp school of mine, it was like being with the Stasi. And now I know why I truly didn't belong. I wasn't part of them, was I? Brother, calm down. We've still got to sort of hypnotize this trauma, and we've still got to get it out of you. The omens have got to leave you. And one thing is for sure, you're going to have to stop with this booze and drowning yourself. Christ, sister. Christ, will you stop with your shrink think? Just for once. The Judas Cross, Chapter 8. Conrad had waited a whole lifetime to look inside this silver box. As a child it had evoked, just by its name, pirate's treasure. But now, upon lifting the heavy lid, there was only a heavy disappointment. The scant regards seemed as meagre as his father's personality. There was nothing, very little, to give away the past. Oh, Conrad remembered those summer sabbaticals hiding away up in the attic behind this box, avoiding his matron pater who, whenever they met, would mete him out a task of tedium. Mater feeling the need to fall into a compulsory compliance of cruelty. Together they perfected Project Purgatory for him. Conrad picked up his father's medals and thought they must have been won by a man of bravery a long time ago, a hero. Conrad thought about his father, an adulterous adventurer who, in his cavalier endeavours, had created him. And now half Boche, backdoor Sprog, a floozy Frenchie. Oh, he hated the sight and smell of that snob, his father. Conrad thought to himself, one thing's for sure, the human. You can dress it up in uniform, regalia, braid, instill it with regulations, rudiments, and rules. But the 7 deadly sins, they were written for a reason by persons who knew exactly what they were dealing with. One of the most cunning creatures this side of the Andromeda galaxy. 1% DNA from being a wild mongrel mortality. Take away the 1% of DNA or the 1% of law, and you had a Neanderthal savage with a Stone Age brain that was last updated 300,000 years ago. Oh, the animal, ever ready, the man-eater, his bloodlust, desire to kill. He thought about his father, probably maimed and murdered on 4 continents, a professional psychopath. He was so similar to an actor who was completely in character, a seamless symbiosis of soul and sanity, a mental masquerade of this conjoined conjuring, which the actor riffs on stage and then returns to reality. But his father, oh, he'd stayed completely in character. only once allowing his mask to slip, to show the true disfigurement of leprosy, that vile secret within, that people would be revolted by if they saw it. It was only his mother's scream that had saved him. His hands were like weapons. Mixed with hysterical strength, Conrad had been held in the air like a rabbit, twisting and kicking. His father had drawn back his hand in a blade ready to slice through flesh and bone. Conrad remembered his father, his true self emerging at the end. Like a lizard, his pimpled, scaly skin was watered dark as a toad. Those eyes, once charming blue, are now slits of a cold raptor with their cataract coverings, nictating membranes of a vulture. At the deathbed, Conrad could clearly see the mark of Cain on his father's mask. His sanity had slipped completely to reveal that sartorial snake within. On touching his father's fevered brow, Freud's Oedipus complex had come true. His father had died instantly, proclaiming him a patricide. There was something nagging Conrad about this situation. His darling, dear half-sister, so desperate to hatch inside his head, scramble the yolk. She seemed so insistent to find something, someone, skeletons rattling around, the truth. He decided he would go into hypnosis with people, professionals of his own choosing, not this hippy-dippy crew that his sister ran with. There's something she wasn't telling him, the total story about their father. He didn't trust her at all. Then again, he never trusted any member of the human race. But letting mind mechanics loose inside his head was not the thing to do, especially with amateurs. All but leave a cognitive screw loose, cause the whole thing, the balance of his brain, to seize to schizophrenia. No, thought Conrad. We'll have a proper technician of the Tet to do the tinkering. But he had to break the news to his darling sister. What do you mean? You're going to a London psychiatrist. I'm one of the best qualified hypnotherapists in the country. Yes, that may be so. But, sister, I have a mind to mind my own mind, if you don't mind, as it were. Oh, very amusing. I do realize that you're a complete cinch. A shrink could pull you apart in no time at all. Your suggestibility is the big easy, your fantasia, your mental malingering. It's a dead giveaway. You think you're something special, somnambulism, but you're not. You're a standard physical, 60-40 physical, right hemisphere. You're not a left intellectual at all, just a standard physical. Sister, I'm not interested in whether my brain is a lefty logical or a far-right radical. It's incidental. But either way, you'll have no trouble assisting the neurological nutcracker down on Harley Street, will you? What's her name? What's her consultant's name? Her name's on the correspondence over there on the table. Good God, I'm not playing second fiddle to this pompous little arse. Oh, you know each other. Good. And then you can crack my cranium together, can't you? Conrad Shrink sported the name or the neutrality of Harley Street. A joker's assistant, Conrad punned. But there wasn't anything of a jester inside this typecast. Professional, an agender in name and nature. He'd expected a man. But this aesthetic assimilation was somewhat karmatic appeasement. She was so similar to an android, almost robotic, void of emotion. She had almost an innocent purity about her, like a child blinking back any bias. Her demeanour was humble, yet as dark and powerful as a Shaolin priest. She was symmetrically, perfectly balanced, how you'd want your droid or shrink to be. But Conrad's monochrome Mandarin did look a little too functionally false. She gestured a seat. The air con was slightly scented with potpourri, detergent, giving everything that sense of also sterile purity. I wonder if it was part of the ergonomic friendliness developed to ease your soul into solace. Stark. Conrad's sister broke the mutual silence of the two agender asexuals, who were neither disturbing or distracting each other by their peaceful presence. The Judas Cross, Chapter 9. Conrad's sister had managed to bring her overwhelming Wendy syndrome with her, streaking it across the naked serenity. Harley and Conrad listened to her paint what was once his blank character canvas into something that now resembled the Scream by Everard Munch. Conrad didn't attempt to interrupt. He sat silently listening to his sister's superficial spiel. It was serving as a good protective shield against any slingshot sentencing that may be fired at himself. But Harley, she had the dry measure of both Conrad and sister. She'd doubtless boiled down enough brains to bouillon in this hell's kitchen. She didn't need recipes or anyone else's schizophrenic stock cubes. To Conrad's astonishment, she was now playing second fiddle to his siblings' melodies and monologues, and she was skipping along without dropping a quaver. Typically, thought, self-centered brat. Never a cameo. Always stole the whole show. He turned to silence her, but Harley held up a stop sign hand, and his sister carried on, fixated, eyes fluttering. Harley put a forefinger to her lips, suggesting silence. Then she spoke quietly. You know, Conrad, it's much better to let the quotient intellectuals, highbrows, talk themselves into a trance, especially a fellow psychiatrist, who I might add it's much easier to hypnotize than the virgin visuals. Virgin visuals? Is that what you call us? Colloquial quip. Virtual visual. You see, Conrad, animists such as your sister, they believe too much in the hocus-pocus of things. They forget to focus their attention on the consciousness. So obsessed with the mystic magic. It becomes like a personal phenomenon, a little like religion, self-belief, self-obsession, taken too far. You can't do anything without a prayer or, in their case, a fixation. Fix, shall we say. Exactly. That's what she wants me to do. Animists usually find they're never quite in the real world. They want to serve up this sort of shamanic stew 3 times a day. It's similar to indoctrination. You can see how it works with the hard drive head. It's etched and wired, and you can rewire it if you wish. But the main reason, Conrad, is that I want to show you with your sister here, let you see how simple the mechanics of hypnosis are. It really is nothing untoward. It's just a subtle suggestions into the subliminal subconscious. Harley turned and entered into a soft-spoken narrative with his sister, which to Conrad seemed as though they were fixating on the total trivia. But then, as he listened, he realized that Harley was a very skillful, silk-tongued barrister. All her triggers and traps had already been set and sprung. Her gentle mind meanderings were indeed just fishing. And Harley's cash and catch was coming in the form of syntax anomalies, and she hooked them quietly from her sister's subconscious and dorsal stream. Harley then quickly pierced them into a sentence of sense and regurgitated the rhetoric in role-play, as if a brilliant cross-wording cryptologist. Suddenly, her reel-to-reel rhetoric stopped, as though she'd just pressed pause on both of them. "So, Conrad, what we're now going to do is take your sister a little further down from this hypnoidal stage, down a little further, cataleptic, and maybe even further than that, into the sleepwalking, somnambulistic stage. But for this age regression, you'll need to pay attention, because this is where you need to be. This is where we should be taking you. Don't worry, it's nothing untoward. With your fantasia and traumatic stress disorders, it will be much easier for you. So, quietly listen to what's being said, and we'll see where we go." Her voice, his sister's voice, seemed to be spilling over into his own subconscious. Haley was looking at him talking, but it's his sister. Also, her smile seemed to be reflecting from every polished surface, like a mirror, like looking into a rear-view mirror of a car. He thought he was tripping on LSD. The voice that was speaking was turning to gibberish, total babble. But then Harley began to tune through the decades and the decibels, the topology, one sealed time capsule of Conrad's head starting to be opened. And radio rational and reality was beginning to be spoken clearly. The language could perfectly understand and answered back fluently, quickly. But the dream was so quickly over. With a slight popping, as it had come through a sound barrier, Conrad was back, looking at the two smiling faces of his sister and the knowing look of Harley. "What are you two grinning at?" "Sister, what are you grinning at? We've found her. Brother, we found her at last, the ghost in your machine. And it's unbelievable. She has a language, life, loci, all of her own. A father's past, an omen. It's as though you've got a separate soul. I told you I'd seen and heard her. No poltergeist in a potting shed. Tell him, Harley." "She's quite right, Conrad. I've never seen anything like it. This person from your father's past, the wartime memory implantation, is so perfect. I don't know how, who, what, where, but we'll need to do more sessions to exercise this ghost from your machine, and we'll try and pull out some more details and demons. In most cases, the sort of age-regressive child's cranium is just small amounts of clutter. So much here. Somehow, I will say one thing, Conrad. People's storage units, as it be, hippocampals, regions, normally strewn across decades and decades, take forever to analyze and defragment. It's like a never-ending jigsaw, but this is not going to be arduous at all. I have a feeling that this has been placed there very, very meticulously. Yes, me too, and my father's meddling, Machiavellian coup de main, no doubt. However, Harley, do you not think that possibly it could be just instinctive DNA, traits that have been passed automatically? I mean, it's been clearly shown that cloned animals and do have exact replications and phobias of the forebears, have they not? Yes, I've seen all that. Yeah, very sceptical. Call me old-fashioned, but I still prefer to think that babies are born pure, immaculate, with a brand new soul of their own. So the personalities and persuasions you're thinking are formulated formative first 5 years, yeah? Yes. Well, I would hope so. So this maker of mine, you don't think could be fairly Machiavellian and sort of preset my perceptions, memory implantations, and sort of neurological nativism, no? Negating my need for experiences, as it were. Didn't Walt Disney do the same for the whole world? Delusionalism. Back then, of course, we didn't have TV. Well, I wouldn't say that, I suppose given enough patience and time, it could be done. I mean, my patients, some of them got heads full of cartoon characters, still from Disney World. Do you know, Harley, my brother always paints my father black, his character. Well, is there any wonder, baby sister? It now turns out that he's been carrying a fascist flag, wearing the undergarments and swastikas, and also flying in the Jolly Roger. All for duty, of course. Though, Harley, to me, my father was just a normal ex-serviceman that ran the post office. He was unbelievably beautiful towards me. He nurtured me perfectly. Yes, sister, very much a positive postie, eh? Unfortunately now with a trail of torture and treachery behind him. And what a perfect cover, eh? All that correspondence, passports, birth certificates, etc., to be, shall we say, confiscated and counterfeited. I know what you're trying to do, brother. Trying to insinuate, just because my father's espionage and background, that him being and I might add, for king or queen of his country, a double or a triple agent. And after the terrible war which he had to serve in, suffering, you're trying to make out that I have this sleeping beauty syndrome, the need for rescue, a folkloric hero, my father. Look, all I'm saying is he got the perfect cover. Anyway, let's get back to his war years. Obviously, this continual game of real-life murder, fear, love, betrayals, all that. Harley, are you superstitious at all? No, I leave the supernatural outside of my work. Jung's transcendentalism is not what my work's based on at all. But you must have exposed a fair amount of, shall we say, ghosts and screaming from the skulls of these mortal machines, no? Oh, yes. Many times, but fully explained. I've never witnessed anything totally supernatural. They say all bad things come in threes, don't they? Triads. Sort of the devil's number, treble. I would say religion is bad, but it's based on a trinity, and usually tragedy comes in threes, dark triads. Yes, what are you thinking? Well, do you not think this could be the third roll of the dice, a piece of Machiavellian malice, evil, my father? No, people are not born evil, they're made evil. Under hypnosis you can usually find the truth, especially in age regression. So if we look at this character on a time scale, my father, the opening scene, sister, I think it's over to you to explain, possibly. Start the ball rolling, as it were. Well, I found out that her father, unfortunately, was an orphan who was privileged in any way. His opening scene in the scant diaries you never mentioned. Well, in the diaries his life had started out very, very grisly. He'd been an urchin running wild in the crime and decay of London, with no school and no rules, just an abandoned orphan in abjection. And the only chance of survival was crime, and comfort and consolement, brutality and beatings and buggery by the sounds of it. It was bedfellows. Sounds like my days at public school without the tuck shop. Anyhow, his days were filled with felching and fencing, stolen goods, between the filth and the torment, that was, which was the norm. And it seems as though the lost lights of hope, well, he was just blinded by darkness and depravity. He began to abide. But still, he was never a villain or a vagabond fully, truly, sort of a half-caste, not in colour or of skin, but in the shyness of sin, I think. Oh, very good, sister. You almost built that Dickensian, dystopian, daddy, poor suffering Oliver Twist. So what are you now telling me? Our father was just made into some sort of cruel coward, was he? Eh? The Judas Cross, Chapter 10. I haven't finished yet, brother. I've only just begun. Being surrounded by this continuous infection would have taken a very strong child to remain devout to his own cause, to try and make up your own rules of what you thought were good for everyone. Each individual, each situation. Now, much use in talking about, rules and regulations to starving people. Don't steal or you'll be condemned. They're already there. They die if they do, they die if they don't. And no man's land. Everybody is out to harm you, perhaps even kill you. You try to be accepted, but it's impossible. And so you take the only route open, the devil's alternative. You become the most hated person in history, a Judas, with no loyalty to anyone except yourself. This honour amongst thieves is absolute rubbish. Sister, where are you going with this, please? I'm going, if you take away the rules and regulations, you're going back to the sort of William Golding effect, Lord of the Flies. ID, ego, superego, Freud's theory on infants, and how they return to the wild, feral animals without the rule of law. Do you know, I thought you might get back to him one of these fine moments. But listen, brother. If you put all these into a personality, or should I say, if you allow all three to develop into a personality, then you have a person capable of extremes. It becomes the Judas effect. This person doesn't think about self-benefit or self-gratification. They don't have time. They're too busy in a game of survival. They think only about the outcome. Of course, staying alive also. It could have been the Romans, the Nazis, the communists. It doesn't really matter. It's the simplicity of sacrifice. To us it may seem cruel, callous, the sacrifice of one's friends, lovers, Jesus. But to stop a massacre, then you have to be a Judas. You have to get rid of the problem. So something or someone. If they're going to get you killed, then, or many people killed, then it's a futile situation. You put circumstance and situation into a factual feasibility, and it comes way over mortal flesh and fallibility, you see? You mean you total selfish, cold-hearted shit? Not at all. He who forsakes total indifference usually wins. Our father was no Judas. He was an original thinker, and that's why they chose him. He could seal the deal and steal the deals from these psychopaths, and there were so many of them at that time. They knew he'd come up trumps with the goods. Let's face it, he himself at that time probably had to become a psychopath himself. he'd get the best outcome in a slaughterhouse situation, hence why he's got 3 of the highest accolades ever paid to him by each country. He wasn't interested in praise. He never mentioned it. Oh, this Judas had. I wonder what his true role was in this war. Why was a villain from the East End mixed up with this? Mercantile, mercenary tendencies, no allegiance. Here he be. Yes, meddling with certain death, torture, an urchin from the London's underbelly. Do you know there's no record of him anywhere? Do you realise that? Birth certificates, nothing. People at that time didn't have birth certificates. Many didn't. Charles Chaplin, for one, didn't. He was just a gypsy. Well, I certainly got the most jumbled mess in my head to sift through, have we not? We get Harley. Are you going to be able to sort this verbal vivisection out? I mean, over listening to my sister, she'd fabricate some fluffy light finale to this old evil pagan. Just because he was nice to her doesn't mean he was nothing but a Janus Judas head in the war that sailed everyone and sold everyone down the river to save his worthless scalp. Well, you see, brother of mine, I've always got this uneasy feeling that there was once an argument between my mother and father a long time ago. She was pleading with him to tell me something. The only time I ever saw my father's mask truly slip, and it was total calmness. Total calmness. Seemed to be possessed. It was beautiful. She fell to her knees and prayed towards him. And he just touched her so kind and gentle, stroking her head so she'd be a child. It was so strange. Good God, sister, he once did that to me. I was whimpering at his feet, crying, and he touched me in that strange way. Switched from being callous and cold and cruel, and was such a gentle person I'd never seen. What do you think, Harley? Well, the pagans believe that Lucifer has paired soulmates with all of us. Just the right circumstance, and that they come to play. It's the ones we usually keep caged, the ones that are rattling at the bars to get out with the red rage. We all have one. And go to extreme, and there they are. Probably your father never wanted to see us again. The soulmate of Satan, who would? Nobody knows what hysterical strength we possess until you're put in the position. Till the beast is out. All those pheromones mixed with adrenaline, testosterone. Think of someone who had probably to live constantly in that, as the satanic soulmate that we never let out. It was switched on constantly until your system is wired and works the opposite way round. Do you think so? Oh, sister, your shrinky-dinky mind. Doesn't take any working out, does it really? Our father, I think, was just a murderous, selfish old git. He just thought about number one and saving his skin. No, brother, this is about extremes, where most people would give up and die. These people, their souls are just beginning to take over in a karmatic level, 5 to 6 on the Aaron scale. The no-pain stage. You can do open heart surgery and take teeth out. That anesthetic. I think he may have been able to self-hypnotize. Level 6, total pain immunity, and still function normally. Due to this sadistic training in his childhood, shut himself down to pain and sleepwalked through it, somnambulism, while still being there. Animals do the same. They stand there to take their minds off the heavy burdens and wounds that they've received. Other people would just die straight instantly of shock. It would have killed us, no doubt. Most people who survived the gulags and the concentration camps became immune from pain. They were able to do the same. Sort of a self-somnambulism. What do you think, Harley? I don't know. We'll have to do more. We'll have to do more tests. Let's see what we can come up with. The Judas Cross, Chapter 11. But Harley, you must have seen some phenomenal things when you take people down into double figures on the Stanford scale, surely. Of course. Eidetic memories, recalls, superhuman strength, profound regressions. Men giving birth, there's all sorts of things that can come forth, recollections and recalls. But don't forget, it's usually taken from the milestone markers in one's own mind, or can be explained. However, yours is very different. Normal age regression, of course, is memories of a child. You have memories of an adult. Obviously, when we take you to the Z stage, the somnambulism and soul sanity, it brings forth something extraordinary. But if you're also hinting at Kantian transcendentalism, then no, things will be explained. Yes, I was thinking more along the lines of being possessed, as it were. Well, I've had people that almost seem possessed, and to exercise what's inside is very similar to what you're thinking. But there was one person, very similar to your father, a brilliant linguist and a most perfect polyglot, who under trance somehow managed to mix every word, every syllable syntax into sentences that sounded like a complete confusion of tongues. Babel, if you can say, biblical. Do you still have the recordings? I may have, but they're confidential. What did she look like? Was she Iranian, polar neck profile, sort of divine in design, Egyptian? You seem to be sort of fixating in a fetish. And what's it about? Do you have a particular persuasion that you... No, it's a reoccurring dream that I keep getting. Oh. Well, I shouldn't be too obsessed with REM sleep and things. I mean, possums and armadillos have prolific dreams themselves, more than we do. Did you translate any of the woman's sort of salad speech at all? No. It was past the stage of verbal vivisection, as it were. Even with advanced technology, we couldn't decipher it. Oh, brother, will you stop with this lingua franca? Adam and Eve. He always thinks that this dream girl is speaking from the scrolls, the stones, the orital bones. For all we know, she could work at the corner shop. His mind's that fractured on booze and trauma. I'm being serious, sister. Oh, stop harking and barking, biblical brother. Our father was a brilliant linguist, cryptologist. We're going to try, with rationale, to find out what is encrypted into your cranium. What's the chances of that, Harley? Any? Well, normally we could only hope for snippets and snatches, but, with you, there is so much of it. So hopefully there will be quite a bit more. Well, let's hope so. Let's hope I'm not just diving down to the depth of level 6, to the seabed of subconsciousness, to bring out a syllable or two of the silt, eh? Let's hope there's a treasure trove in my head. I doubt whether there's a treasure trove. That's only for the movies. Usually this thing only brings forth a few trinkets of trivia. Oh, great stuff. Obviously, but disturbs a lot of sanity sludge in the process, yeah? Well, it may do, but let's face it, the gremlins in the dark corners and the cobwebs of your mind need hoovering out. The, the clean conscience. Get rid of the clutter. I see. A soul wash. Spring clean of my sanity. There's someone else that wants to straighten out my fuzzy logic, as though they be hair extensions of her own Chrissy doll. Quick shampoo and set, hey sister? Oh, brother. It's better to get things sorted out properly and professionally. Don't you? Oh, thank you, sister. Sister of all things shrink. Oh, I'm glad to hear you that you're on hand to help and find out what this father might have encoded. Better than that, and leaving it to your hippy-dippy crew, who'd have to be turned into an android like your beloved Roger. Who's Roger, please? A fried-out zombie that she's mentally rewired using the loom from the kettle and half a dozen years of domestic tedium. Roger, Harley, happens to be my dear devoted husband. He's of very high quotient intelligence, and at present is looking after the domesticity, which normal devotees do, instead of living a life of total selfish, reckless abandonment. Listen, I think with you two, this tension stage and how high it's running, I think it'd probably be a good time to break and rendezvous tomorrow, shall we say, at the same time? And then we can hopefully start again and put our focus, powers and perceptions into ultimately, finding out what has been implanted into your mind, Conrad. Good idea, Conrad. Good idea, Harley. It's always reassuring to have somebody with a rhetoric of optimism. Thank you. Ooh, I say, you're polishing your pride for this mind mechanic, aren't you? Well, at least, sister, she's a straight talker, not a kowtowing convention that you're mixed up with. I say, a closed closet of curiosity could kill the wussy cat, I'll be better floating around with her than floating on your futon and listening to Pinkstring from your mob. So maybe the two asexuals have found a little frigid air to share. Marvellous. You could freeze your little libido lollipops together, can't you? I am not cold or frigid. Just because I don't geezer gush all over everyone like you, some hot emotion, doesn't make me frigid. Emotion? Oh, brother, you are a life in cold blood. There are marble tombstones and statues with higher emotional temperatures than you. I am not here to find out what sexual connotations I have. We're here to work together, cast clarity into the devil's work of your father. Remember him? Your callous condemnation of our father, I think, one day you'll find out. It'll be all misplaced. Rubbish. You don't know him, sister. Never saw that deviant devil's work. Hatred that was contained within that man. The deceased soul. Well, with me, it was totally the opposite. It was caring, sharing, beautiful. Caring, sharing. The only thing he shared was his death. He spent his every moment in solitary confinement, reading some ancient Greek or Aramaic, pent up in purgatory. A lot of people are pent up in purgatory, especially OCD geniuses. Spend a good deal of time in self-reflection, analysing themselves and other things. Introspection. I'm not talking about those people. I'm not talking about them at all. I knew Daddy had some peculiar traits. We all do. Do you keep softening your sensing to a typical of a lover's lexicon, isn't it? Timid lingo, more like, of someone or being around some Looney Tune who might pop you in the oven on gas mark 5 while you're still alive. The Judas Cross, Chapter 12. Oh, brother, for once let's work together and find out just what this old eccentric father of ours is all about. Well, how can we, sister? To begin with, we don't have anything, no background on him. A few scratchings in a diary, some old love letters, and a few medals. I haven't got anything relating to him. And I'm sure the relative files at the MOD or wherever he was working for them totally classified or been burnt. Have an international incident. Ah, but brother, we have ourselves. We are the beginning of the mystery, the next of kin. Treasure trove of information lies within. The genetic codes. I have already taken a butyl swab and posted mine out there for the wide world, and I must say there are some very unusual results. Yours could show even better results. Oh, I bet they could. The nut houses and jails will be overflowing with my rallies, no doubt. Incarcerated for rape, murder, and genocide. Why do you always have to look on the dark side? There's a bright side to every moon. I'm sure there is. There'll be light falling from a little window of a dark dungeon somewhere onto them. I mean, did you ever see our father take any tests? Hospital, dentist, doctors. Surely they would carry his DNA. No, you never saw him go to hospital, dentists, or anything. He always DIY'd everything. Stitches, teeth, any injuries. He was fantastic at fixing bones. I mean, he even operated on my cat. And I saw him pull out a wisdom tooth with a set of narrow-nosed pliers. Very self-sufficient. More like he was hiding. Who the hell starts pulling wisdom teeth out with pliers unless they've got something in their Pandora's past that they don't want anyone else to find? The sins of the father become the sins of the son, sister. Yes, brother, and the sins of the sister become the sins of the mum, brother. Oh, brother, come on. The only way is to get the bugle ball rolling is you to take a swab. You do realise, sister, that if there are any outstanding vendettas, and I should say, I will be the first. I could be the first to end up on a Corsican carvery. These Mediterranean hot bloods, they have long memories and long knives. They carry them all the way back to their ancestral feuds. It takes forever. And colloquially, the Corsicans call it cutlery. They hand it down to the eldest son, and he swears to continue the vendetta until the debt or the blood money has been paid. And of course, the father, this is after the father's been slaughtered. Ours never paid the debt. I'm in line. Oh, dear brother. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, eh? The way your voice is rising, you'd think the Corsican castrati had already taken place. Come on, if I'll set your faint heart. Let's get you taking the test. You don't understand, sister. Any outstanding blood feuds, then it's me that gets slaughtered, the male sibling. Me, myself. Calm down, Mavis Braveheart. You do realise that 70 years ago you've caught the vapours. Oh, breathe into a paper bag, will you? You know I get the bellyful of the butterflies on an equinox or a detox. Oh, Christ, you're not detoxing. Ah, the heebie-jeebies. Don't tell me you're heading into a sobriety solstice again. How long's it been? Come on, we'll get you a wet of booze. How long has it been, the big dry this time? I don't know, 12 hours? Oh, half a day. You're quaking. What a man. The DTs are all rising like the bends. You know, I should never rise to the surface of sobriety that quickly. I mean, what do you expect? You're supposed to do a gradual decompression from the depths of drunkenness. Avoid the bubbles, bends of the fizzy, eh? This is no joke. I can feel the formication itch. Oof, next thing I'll be foaming at the mouth. Heaven's sake. Let's get you some booze. The last thing we need is you formication freeze in front of highly frigid air. Due to you scratching and vomiting up foam. Harley is a professional. To have seen everything, all the DTs and the heebie-jeebies, many times before. Exercising drink demons from champagne slakers and rebuilding cocaine crashers from the CEOs of all companies in London. And be her daily bread. You and your wet head. Paranoid schizophrenic. Personality go with it. Oh, should be a breeze. I suppose. Come on, we better get the bartender. Tell him to mix me a some medicine, for heaven's sake. Get him to mix me a medicinal Mary, and that'll do it. Extra blood, triple vodka, yeah? A Bloody Mary at the midday. You know, you've got to give up this, brother. Bloody Marys for breakfast. I mean, come on. You've got to be joking, sister. We're die-hard drunks, the Mediterranean scoring centuries on this stuff. It's like a salad in a glass, for heaven's sake, with a little warfarin. There's a blood thinner thrown in. What? I'll tell you, it's better than any of that sugar puss and Weetabix you're spooning down you. Those are the real serial killers, that rubbish you're eating. Oh yeah, I can see the centennial card arriving for you from the reigning monarch, pleading for you to die. You clown. Anyone of sound mind doesn't jumpstart their day with a triple sharpener and a brace of woodbines and a snort. Christ. It's a wonder you're not back on that bloody snow-coloured snuff, isn't it? Oh, Jesus, you are, aren't you? We'll be all right taking a buccal swab. Huh? No doubt the feds will throw us both into custody. The Judas Cross, chapter 13. Brother, you are going to get yourself dried out, and I mean triple lively. Last thing we need is anybody that's still on a big rinse, okay? In fact, Harley, darling, can flick off the switches while you're down at level 6. Oh, no. Oh, yes, she can turn off the gas. I'm not having you hallucinating again. Remember last time? Running up the street naked, being chased by the red crabs. Turned out to be autumn leaves in the breeze. And then the frog rain falling on your windowpane, phoning me non-stop 4 o'clock in the morning, and then braying on my door. No, brother. No. Okay, she can turn off the gas a tad. Suppose it's time to quell the righteous rebellion, I suppose. Bring a status quo between my warring souls. Oh, drink your salad. I'll tell you what, Laurence Olivier will never be dead while you're still treading the boards, will he? Right, brother. I've arranged an itinerary. DNA testing first, and then we're gonna get our father's medals analysed by an expert. See, you'll try and shaft some light into this dark, mysterious mélanger. Why are we still messing about? Why don't we just leave him dead, digging around in his murky past? I can tell you, it'd be an absolute con. A total trickster. Everything. Just another callous charade. Well, Mr. Negativo, this is why we're going to get them sorted out by an independent specialist. Very low key. Last thing they want is to begin playing a ball game with a beehive. I was thinking of Spinks and Sons, but it might be a little embarrassing. Embarrassing? I bet it would. We find out he's been robbing a corpse. Grave-robbing old grifter. That's a dreadful thing to say. But a person, a patron, who paid for everything, even your schooling and welfare. I was an illegitimate, inconvenient sprog. We tormented, I might say, every time we bumped into each other. Well, let's not go back. Let's crack on, brother. We're meeting this gentleman, Goring's Gin Garden, for lunch. The Goring? Am I missing something, or what, sister? Hey, have you suddenly become a duchy or something? A lunch at the Goring will murder a monkey in money. Oh, just a minute. Just a minute. You scheming little bitch, you're hiding something, aren't you? He's left us a stash of cash, hasn't he? You conniving little... How much has he left us? We didn't get anything. I'm the sole recipient. If you've forgotten, dear brother, you've been missing in action for months upon months. Daddy thought you were dead, instead of falling down a well of the old and filthy. Oh, how dreadfully inconvenient for the prodigal son to return, eh? Your little albino albatross. Black dog, more like. Anyhow, Father found it necessary to leave his last will and testament to me. Execute. I, after I've shafted some light into this noir, I shall decide what to do. And I shall also decide what to do with you, dear brother. Ooh, I bet you're marvellous. More tired of torment for me, eh, to endure. Anyway, sister, who is this Mech mixology. We're meeting down at the Gin Palace. Who is he? Not a bartender? He'll mix his drinks all right if they're on a free tab, especially at Goring. His name, brother, is Sinclair Hamilton Bromley. Comes highly recommended. Christ, what a name. He'll be the one wearing a gullet as a scarf, all the way down to his feet, no doubt. Oh, Halo the hypocrite. They haven't got one to fit. Remember you last time, the martini mouthwash parties, eh? Olives in Listerine, what a dream. It was a mistake. A mistake, a very, very expensive Issey Miyake mistake. Aftershave aperitifs, Coco Chanel cognacs at my expense, you and that mad Jap. I drank my bathroom cabinet. There were perfumes in there that my mother had left me, worth fortune. Mixed them into bloody sangria. All right, let's catch the tube. Conrad's sister, quite a remarkable woman. Like a chameleon, was able to blend into a bland background. Was visibly charismatic as dry grass until she opened her mouth and spoke. And a riot of colour burst forth, oratory of orchestration, and so composed it could melt into the mind like a melody. She could quell a room full of tantrum teenagers and wake the deaf ears of the dead. Oh, what a woman, thought Conrad. Brother, listen. We shall proceed. I want no mention to this medallion man, these medals, and where they originated from. Let's just see what he's got to say about them, right? Without any influence from us. But first, I'm going to drop off your buccal swab. What swab? This swab. Open your gob. We'll drop that off at the DNA data bank and see what it brings. See what your closest match might be. I think it's come back as a mosque rat. There's no harm in trying, is there? Oh, very good, darling, very good. Constant stream of amusement. Thank you. At least one of us is prepared and ready. This DNA posted to the databanks. Now then, let's find out. Probably take a few days to find out. You might be a secret daddy. Knowing my look, no doubt be some nomadic tribe that I belong to. Just in London sightseeing, all 20 of them. I just realised, brother, who could be the devil's spawn, a sextuplet, the sextuplet of a sextuplet. Back, Beelzebub. Oh, very funny. But I should say, with all my alcohol intake, there'll never be, let's face it, there are not going to be any little swimmers, are they? It's vinaigrette, purely for sprinkling on your salad or your chips. Yes, all that methylation. You certainly drank enough for all the meths, haven't you? I find meths a tad oily for the palate, but very good, certainly, as a seed killer. Right. Best behaviour, brother. We're here at Goring's. The Judas Cross, chapter 14. Oh, sister, I do so hate these palaces of pretension. It's not obviously the place, but the people have such plastic personalities and persuasions. They have so gallant and beau. I mean, look, the cocked tricorn hats and silk breeches. Oh, why does everyone feel the need to court dress? Because there's a fancy 5-star hotel. What's it about? Oh, be quiet, brother. Now let's see if we can find this sovereign stealer. I'll inquire at reception. He's got to be somewhere. Right. He's in the Goring garden on some sort of Heppel gin safari at the moment. He's been given a message. Oh, I bet he is. Big game drinker, no doubt. He'll have some trophies for shooting down wild turkey and famous grouse. No doubt bagged a snow leopard spritzer in the jungle room, eh? Shh, I think he's coming. Dr. Bromley? Ah, enchanté, Dr. Boothroyd. May I present to you my brother? Doctor... Sorry, no, just Just a lowly lay peasant, unfortunately. Oh dear. Well, shall we peck at a little sustenance? They do a marvellous working lunch here. It's Michelin star, Queen's Warrant. It doesn't get any better than that. Tell you what, I'll do the ordering for us. I know where all the monkey traps are on the menu, eh? Oh, I bet he knows where the traps are. What's he supposed to be? Looks like some landed gentry out of the Field magazine. 3-piece Donegal tweed with triple trickers on his feet. Come on, he only needs a purdy broken over his arm to finish the horse and hounds parade. Shh! He's coming back. Be quiet. Right, shall we get down to business before the food arrives? See what this little mystery's all about, eh? Conrad's sister placed the medals down onto the silk table serviette. Sinclair eyed them suspiciously. He took out a pair of white cotton gloves like a magician, selected one of the medals. He picked it up from the table as though it be a diamond Tiffany brooch. Eyeing it in the light, he turned it slowly, searching, as though searching for the leg length of a tearing wine. He smelt and stroked it, gently placed it back down as though it was a precious gemstone. Strange. These medals possess no privy marks, mottos, signs, nothing at all. And also no wear and tear of any kind, which means that they've never been worn at any time, you see. If they had, they're just slightly chinked together and they show the merest indentation which I can see through my magnifier. They've never been worn. He took out a mini metal analyzer with a microscope, some weighing scales. His hands quivered slightly as though they were about to pick up a tarantula. His silence spoke loudly into the calm, still room. Do you mind telling me where you acquired these? By the way, they are genuine. I thought at first they may be replicas due to their immaculate condition, but the metal content is perfectly correct. I mean, everyone has Pippin, Squeaks, Wilfred, Mutt and Jeffries lying around. But something like these, I've never ever seen anything approaching these. Do you have the story attached to the metallata? To use the Vulgarian Latin, it brings more value to, well, it is the value of the story behind any medal is the value. Well, I'm sorry, but we don't have the story behind them at all. They were left to us in a will, you see. Really? That's strange. Well, there was a story of a person who had 2 medals by opposing armies, of course, from battle. He was a deep undercover spy in espionage and was given the task of laying down false trails by both sides. Extremely dangerous. Indeed, hence why his also were not carrying any insignia, marks, mottos. And he'd never ever thought to wear them either. Double agent. It's rare for a person to have 3, which indicates a triple agent, obviously, whose missions may have gone right or wrong. Sinclair examined the medals again meticulously, then placed them down in total silence. It's just occurred to me, if these medals were bestowed upon someone, let's say in espionage, he must have been given total carte blanche by all the powers. A dog of war, mercenary. How fascinating, a man with so many missions. You have no idea at all to the person's background? No, we thought we did, but it is truly a mystery. And it's no good just guessing. I suppose we'll just have to keep digging around in the dark. Do you mind if I photograph them and show them to a colleague of mine? He's Surely this Tinker Tailor soldier spy must have lived or died somewhere in this, or the sepia shadows of war and peace. Right. Well, sister, it was a complete waste of time, wasn't it? I thought he's supposed to be an expert. All things take time, dear brother. While they're taking time, we shall enjoy London. It's been so long since I was here. A student whetting my gills. I missed out on the Culture Vulture tour. So what I think we'll do is we'll suggest a little meander through the museums. The SOE Museum, followed by, shall we say, a little memorabilia marché down in Portobello Road. All right, Gabner? Near to where Georgie Orwell used to live, I think. Near to where Georgie Orwell... You're up to something, sister. What is it? Why am I in the dark here? What are you doing? Well, we need an old war vet. Proper military man who's, shall we say, been trading in the memorabilia militare for quite some time. This one's been trading in it for over half a century. I think he could be carrying the torch, shall I say, to usher us the light through this theatre of death. A theatre of war. I don't follow you. Oh, for heaven's sake. We need someone to light the way through this darkness. Well, what about Sinclair Bromley? What's he all about? Oh, dear brother. I have to have a starting point. I have to make sure that things were in place, that they were genuine and not stolen or forged. Point in moving to the next level. If things are lost at the start, is there? No, I think what also we might just possibly have a look at a worldwide military medal auction too. See if we can bring forth a buyer or two, a curious collector from the deep, dark, murky past, eh? You're mad. We could end up with trouble here, opening a box of snakes. That is what we're trying to do, is to discover where our father and the mystery, these very esteemed, valuable medals by all accounts. Well, putting him in a sale tonight, well, just the mere morbid memorabilia. It usually brings forward the morbid curiosity. Funerals are the same. The ghosts, the skeletons come rattling back from the grave to pay their last respects or rewards. I did lay a lure, or tried to. I put our father's name in the Times obituary, but no takers, not as yet. They're probably under a false name, you see. And most of his old comrades, crew, will be dead. The pseudonym he was using will never be on file. Oh, scheming little bitch. Why haven't you told me these things? Why am I wandering around blind? Because I need to analyse things and run them through my own mind prospectively and put them in place without distractions of booze hounds. Need to lay down a few tripwires and booby traps. Also covered our trail and rear ends with a private detective. See if he can come up with it. He's got all the mod cons, obviously. Oh, you naughty girl. You've got to be prepared, soldier. Your powder dry, not saturated with booze. Gun primed and fully loaded. Cocked. Ready. Absolutely, quartermaster. No good sporting a flaccid firearm, eh? Tear off Velcro trousers. Ready for the 3-minute club, you. Here, sir. I'm being serious, brother. It's time for you to dry out your powder. Stop blaming the world for tiddling into your own tinderbox. Thank you, darling. I think you must have climbed Mount Avarice a little too quickly. You're showing all the signs of altitude sickness. Attitude sickness, more like. Now, come on, let's quickly slacken off your money belt. Open your purse and let it breathe deeply. There, we might just be able to save your sense of humour, eh, darling sister? Very good, brother, very good. You're getting the hang of it. Marinating yourself with members of the intelligence has worked wonders. What flavoured you? instead of hanging around with that little Jap kamikaze machine of yours. Don't call her that. Oh, come on, she's a sarky suicide plan. The Judas Cross, chapter 15. The shop had a strange senior smell about it, of non-alman musk mixed with aqua velva. The pinstripe proprietor could have walked straight from the colonial era via the Crimean War. His small shop resembled a section of the War Office Whitehall. Everything about the man was a proud personification of Englishness, finishing off with his thin waxed moustache and a ludicrous shell comb over hair style. "Good day, sir. Good day, madam. Can I be of assistance at all?" "Well, actually, it's the little Memsahib that requires the assistance, old boy." Conrad condescendingly handed the conversation to his sister. The proprietor immediately spoke to her in fluent Hindu, and to Conrad's surprise she answered back, "I didn't know you could speak any Hindu." "No, neither did I." He must have been triggered off by a strange emotional subconscious trigger. "Excuse me, sir, but where did you acquire your language skills?" "Oh, I spent most of my formative years in a large hotel. My parents were servants there at the time. I speak many, many different tongues. Not quite fluent. It was due to playing with so many different nationalities. I only need someone to trigger them off, and it sets me back in a reflective reaction, you see. Your brother mentioning Mem Sahib took me straight back to the melting pot." "Of course. Did you have any formal education or training at all to perfect the skills after that?" "Oh, you must be joking. We got no money for that." No, we taught ourselves, trial and error. It was good fun. The kids, we even had our own, language. It was total gobbledygook. But we understood it. Anyone else didn't, of course. It seemed so natural at the time to us. Do you remember any of it?" No. I need someone to try and trigger it off. Most people are now dead. Most of my young friends then are dead, I suppose. Can I assist you with anything else? Just a moment, please, sir. I think you've hit on a fabulous idea here. Glossia cryptophasia. Do you know what that means? Yes, I do. Yes, slightly. I don't. What are you babbling about, sister? Well, it's our father. He was taught very similar to yourself, sir. Never really had much schooling, or any sort of... he grew up here, running wild in the crime and decay of London. I think he had Machiavellian primate syndrome. Through torment of his mind, he taught himself to mimic every phonetic nuance, probably to aid and abet survival. Let's face it, desperate child, wild. It's amazing what the mind can do. It's 300 times more fluid and plastic than what ours are now. It could mimic every sound. Like a ping-pong parallel mirror effect, mental recursion. Without any mothering or schooling or any intervention, of course you have to develop your own cryptophasia speech, similar to yourself and your friends. The mind stores everything, develops in its own learning capabilities. Yes, I might be able to help you further. You are in the right direction. It's a similar syntax to a mimicking bird. Phonetic patterns recognized immediately, and through being we weren't under pressure, but if you're in a situation of war and a situation of where life dependency, shall we say, then of course it does take on this massive amount of genius, sort of minor bird genius. You can get children who can understand every single part of parents' vocabulary, but don't speak a word of it, of course. Don't understand a word of it, of course. It's all about the vocal auditory posterior pathways. They they become so fluid, so plastic, and some do remain that way. With the wildness situation of things, especially gypsies. Children in India, you see on the train stations, can speak virtually 10 or 20 languages fluent. The morphic mimicry is unbelievable. And of course it's what happens is the morphemes become so many and the lexemes limited. It's the first 5 years of formative years, of course, the brain development, dendritic spikes, shall we say, of spines and spindles of the brain. It's a massive, massive growth, and sometimes it can continue much further than if you are a wild sort of street kid. That's why they're so savvy at carving out an existence. They've got nobody and nothing to rely on at all, and they're in constant danger. So through hunger, their senses become so acute and sharp, blade-like poignance. So you were able to hold all these languages in your head, and sound, shapes, and phonetically somehow related them together. Yes. Yes, I mean, we were very useful at one stage. They called us in, the War Office called us into Bletchley Park, our little gang, as it were, and dropped us into D-section, language and cryptology, to try and analyse by the boffins. I, for some strange reason, wasn't chosen because I failed the perfect pitch. Musical, that is. Strange you should say that. My father had perfect pitch. Do you know, it's just occurred to me. During the war, our father was used, we think, in Secret Service, of course. Is it possible, do you think, that anyone could be used as a recording device? Somehow have the capability of mental and dossier compression, like similar to black cabbies and things. It's possible, I suppose. Perfect recall could come back under hypnosis. I mean, let's face it, autistic children and savant syndrome, Rain Man, they also have that capability. There's only a few of them in the world. They're known as pikers. About 12 of them have ever existed, with the pure gift, that is. You can't acquire it. It's not like calendar counters or pie charts. It's totally instinctive autobiographical recalling. Now I know why my father was such a complete arsehole. Spent my childhood years living with a fascist Rain Man, obviously 3 parts mentally insane. Could I assist you with anything else? Yes, if you could, please, sir. I mean, please do it. Try and excuse my brother. Without realizing it, I think you become invaluable here. But we do have 3 other things, actually, that are causing considerable concern, and we were hoping that you might be able to sort of cast a little clarity into the conundrum. These are what our father left, with a few scraps of notes. Oh, yes. At last, one of the Judas Cross, the Grand Cross of the Eagle. I never thought I'd ever see one of these. Just rumour in folklore. I mean, let's face it, the 1 or 2 American moguls, Henry Ford had one, and Mussolini, Franco reputed. They even say that maybe one of the papal leaders had one. Yes, they're very rare, exceptionally rare. And some, unlike this one, it does not have the crossed swords and military courage. This is more obviously given for intellectual capabilities. But you had to really sort of contribute a massive amount to the Nazi campaign. Herring Göring had received one for obviously redesigning the entire German Luftwaffe. You really had to change the course of war to win one of these. Why did you call it the Judas Cross? Well, it's a pseudonym given to them by Vichy France and many presidents, people that received them, like Ford and Lindenberg and Watson, IBM. They were, regarded a little as the Judas, even though in the early stages nobody knew quite what Nazism was. I don't need to tell you the importance of keeping this quite on a covert key, because there will be danger surrounding this cross. You do realise that? Danger? What danger? I mean, there's hardly anybody left, will there? Most of them will be dead. And, anyone else, could they really be bothered? Oh, sister, I told you about digging around in the damn past. Oh, be quiet, brother. Listen to what the man's got to say. Well, I'm pretty sure, of course, it's the genuine article, the centre one. The other one is a papal awardment. And the Croix du Gueux by the French one, there's many of those. This could have been awarded personally by Adolf Hitler. I doubt it, because it's the person that received all these probably be a double agent, of course, or triple agent maybe, and no one ever knew who they were or their identities. But anything to do with Nazi memorabilia, especially top echelon, and Hitler, anything to awarded by him, then of course the Third Reich extremists groups, of which there are quite a few, and they do have shrines in Germany full of this sort of militar memorabilia, they would stop at nothing to get their hands on this. So be under no doubt as to how much they would really want and desire this, and what length they would go to. And of course, well, just be careful. The Judas Cross, chapter 16. So, could we have a combined or a collection of opinions as to how you think a sub-postmaster may have acquired these quite prestigious medals? Anyone? Well, I think he will have stolen them from someone or somewhere. Just a grave-robbing grifter, nothing but a gypsy thief. As you can see, my brother has a brutal bias against my old pater, who didn't spare the rod, but somehow still ended up with a ruined child. I myself tend towards the belief that father, won these medals whilst holding a prominent position for his language capabilities and his cryptology skills of code breaking. Germany was lost, of course. He probably aided and abetted some allies in sifting through ciphers, and through the destruction and debris we acquired the medals. Hence why they show no inscriptions. Yes, right time, right place for a Judas thief. 30 pieces of silver from all sides, eh? Scallywag and Scarpa Brigade. Oh, be quiet, brother. So, we're trying to make sense of this, without sludging it up with your bias and hatred. Would it be possible, do you think, to auction these medals, a forthcoming sale, or would you refrain from doing that? Oh, I definitely refrain. These things promote too much hostility, I think. Considerable calamity from the far right would come for this. Good heavens. I tell you what, a couple of lion hearts. The war's been over for 6 decades and you're still trembling like a couple of dandelions. What's the matter with you two? Oh, my sister, I don't think, has grasped the situation. Being a terrible traitor playing all sides. To get this ill-gotten gain. There's doubtless still buckets of blood filling up or dripping full as we speak. And somehow he's managed to slip back under cover, returning to Civvy Street, under pseudonym with a pseudo-family, melding back into the middle-class mediocrity. This could unleash problems. Oh, well, brother. War brings out the savagery in the sentient sapien. That's what it does. It's the instinct of survival. Everybody has a road rage reptile inside them. Our father was much more than that. Sister, if you care to just... I don't know which eyes you were looking into, but to me, in the right light, they were like portholes of the Titanic. The dead were staring back. Those little retina reflectors of his are normally mirrored with serenity and stillness, but those soul holes, when they slid open, you saw the beast. As you can see, sir, if you ever need a quick, clean kill of anyone's character, then look no further than my little nepotistic ninja over here. As I say, shall we onward to Damascus, as they say? But still, might I say again, a little caution about flouting these medals, who both seem a little laissez-faire with the importance of certainly that Centre Judas Cross. Yes, thank you for your help. I must say it's been very, very valuable. Thank you, sir. Well, thank you, madam, for showing me these. They're very, very rare. Macabre and militant. Strange how such all the rest of the powerful moguls of industry and people in possession of one of these medals were, and your father just an ordinary postman. Very strange indeed. Outside the shop, Conrad gasped and gesticulated loudly. Well, that's just topping, isn't it, sister? We're now in possession of some iconic cross. It was steeped in enough blood by Mussolini and all the rest of the fascists and Hitler. Christ, we'll end up nailed to them. Dreadful little thing. We'll be nailed onto them and left to die. Oh, there you go again, brother. Melodrama and melodies, eh? You know, faint hearts win, fat women. Oh, listen here, hell girl. That cross was pinned on by a psychopath, onto a psychopath as far as I'm concerned. And there were millions of other psychopaths that were worshipping them with catchy little cute names, like the Beast of Belsen and the Bitch of Buchenwald. They skinned people and made them into lampshades and handbags. Remember? In the great big operation genocide called the Holocaust. Wussy. They'll all be dead or near to it. Come on, Captain Courageous. Let's get you back to the shrink's couch. Maybe Harley can hypnotise some of the coward out of you. You don't see it, do you? You don't fear anything. I know why, because you have lived in a warm, kind comfort, swaddled in cotton wool all your life. Whereas I have had a terrifying stay on this planet. Beatings, belittlements, all my life. So I do not suffer from this superwoman, Superman syndrome of yours. Oh, come on, tough guy. Let's get you back levelled out on the couch. Maybe Harley can find some more RAM from your abundance of spam that's inside your head. You see, the problem with your flawed plan, sister, that the psychos in question, they will have already gleaned a lot of information from other people that they've tortured. And let's face it, little blood wouldn't matter to them. They're already bathed in it. Sinclair Hamilton Bromley, for one. No doubt, days from now, he'll be found floating down the Thames in bits and pieces. Closely followed by us. Or the old patron of that shop. Oh, you're such a predictable paranoid. Booze, brother. It is booze. There is no boogeyman. Sister, do you know, sometimes you really goad me like a wasp on a window. I could risk reincarnation. But listen, my little temptress, I have had a lifetime of abuse. I am also such a long way from this little sadistic sway of yours. So shall we save the old charades? And, come on, tell me what's going on. Speak! Well, brother, I think our father was in the unique position of being, shall we say, a skivvy for all the big wheels, their whipping boy. He managed to be the lubricant in the massive military machine, the grease, the oil. And without him, and without people like him, even though they may seem quite insignificant, the machine would cease to a standstill. They were in privileged positions, until things go wrong, of course, and then the blood of spilt, and you were used as a sacrifice, a vicarious redemption, shall we say, if things went wrong. The link in the chain would be cut, a bit like the mafia. Let's face it, how could these massive, monstrous egos buddy up together without a little greasing? Now, the old empires, Britain, Austria-Hungary, France, they were quite happy having the world to themselves. Why not? But unfortunately, there were some new, very hungry beasts on the savannah, the prodigal sons of empire. The lean, mean fighting machines, the Fords, the Kennedys, the Rockefellers, who'd built America from scratch with blood and fire. They were not concerned with protocol's privilege. The prize they wanted was power, plunder. And the huge empires. To them, of fat ancient dinosaurs ready for slaughter. As Freud said, the sons carry all the sins of the father, hence why they feel the nepotistic urge to murder them. the Oedipus complex. Irish Scots immigrants, they were sent out as slaves, remember, slaves of empire. They now return to plunder and subjugate their privileged perpetrators that had persecuted the forebears. It's happened so many, many times in the rise and fall of empire. The Judas Cross, chapter 17. You see, dear brother, that the modern mercantile man from the Americas didn't discriminate on which creed you had to bleed to feed their greed, protocols, privilege, moral scruples. At this level, money means nothing. It's power, possession of new lands. That's the aphrodisiac, the narcotic. These totalitarian titans wanted it all. Oh, very good speech. Very good. Bravo. Bravo, sister. So what you're saying is our father was sort of this mediating messenger boy, eh? For the sadistic psychopath. Judas Iscariot hireling sort of thing. Hmm? I think to receive these accolades here, he's done quite a bit more than pass paper backwards and forwards at the papal post office, don't you? Oh, this is becoming as clear as custard. What was this all shite up to during the war, sister? Well, it had to be something to do with languages and encryption, of course, but possibly the movement of people, the top elite echelon, mandarins of the Nazis. If we're going to trade in the truth, that is. They were 50 years ahead of everybody, ahead of their own time, really, especially in science. The Americans quickly realized they needed to keep them out of the reach of Stalin. This knowledge was worth more than gold, rocket propulsion, nuclear. Yes, it's certainly the cherry on the top of their Manhattan project, wasn't it? Double agent, triple agent. Our father, I think, would have been helping to procure and protect, ultimately in the escape, and no doubtless from the Vatican, the newly opened rat line of Bishop Hurdle's Exodus Express. They would have, they needed passports, identities, brand new backgrounds, and the Vatican City provided all of this. The Americans had sanctioned it, and they were securing their diplomatic immunity into the Promised Land. Our father was just the Rattenfänger, as the Germans would say, the Pied Piper of the people, rat catcher. Secret codes and things, and played out on Enigma machines and various other machines. He was able to contact the spies and the spooks from all over German intelligence. And I think that would have been his job. A spy catcher, eh, sister? A spy catcher. You so love to paint this pretty picture of our pater, don't you? Well, I think he possibly collected these terrified persons from all over Europe, aided and funded by the American, OSS, the fledgling CIA, and sort of brought them back to the Vatican Papal Palace, and like a white exorcism, sister. So this prior knowledge, why haven't you? Why am I still plundering around in the dark? If you think you have this prior knowledge, what's Roger? What's Roger been up to with this? Is this part of his little operation as well? The Asperger's quartet. They obviously found this out at the base, have they? Well, we need more confirmation on all my theories, but I mean, even the owner in the metal shop has thought the Englishness by his persona and dress, but alas, I think a little bit too over the top of this proud sort of personification of Englishness. He also, don't forget, could be, as far as I'm concerned, a spook. Roger mentioned him, and I should think he's on his way as we speak, after our little tete-a-tete, to many, many powerful confidants. Who he works for, who knows? You see, brother, when all the rats were leaving the sinking ship of the SS Deutschland, by their thousands, to avoid the obvious problems like being hung by the neck until dead, you're using Red Cross passports, and you were given parcels and changes of clothing by the Red Cross, handed out by the Vatican. I mean, long had this sign been emblazoned into our sympathetic psychology as a symbol of sacred humanitarianism throughout the war. So no one would think they would be carrying anything but good tidings, apart from this time. So why did the Pope allow it then? Well, the poor old puppet poet had no choice. He'd done so many different deals with so many different devils to keep the ancient kingdom of his intact, and even such a sacred place like Monte Cassino, it would have been razed to the ground by Hitler if he hadn't have signed on, shall we say. Just one night of blitzkrieg, and the good Lord wouldn't have been able to save it. Been bombed into ruins and then sacked and raped, just as Napoleon had done before. He had to capitulate. He capitulated with the Holocaust, is that what you're saying? And then signed the treaty, yeah? Well, he didn't condone it, but, I mean, like the Romans before, he had to wash his hands of the problem. Pope Pius and Pontius Pilate, to avoid total disaster, war. No, what I think, brother, with the fires raging from the north, east, south, and west, the four horses of the apocalypse, shall we say, stampeding in, Italy, Rome, had become the human corral, and only the best beasts were selected for the Salvation fire sale. Had the wealth, not just wealth, but also wisdom. That's the only thing that bought you a passage on this, to the promised land. Your swag bag had got to be very, very full to ride that Vatican Express. And the Red Cross Exchange for the black swastika. The Allies had sanctioned it, don't forget. The newly established War Office at the Vatican was working day and night sifting through the psychopaths for the best nuggets. To build themselves a new modern war machine. Let's face it, they needed nuclear, they needed the jet propulsion, all the secret services and the knowledge. It was king. And only the Nazis had the knowledge about the Red Dread, the Russians, don't forget, and the Americans desperately needed that. Oh, so now you're portraying our father as some Latter-day Saint recruitment agency. They must have. Oh, my sister, you are so wonderbar, aren't you? This homicidal, genocidal maniac, incorporated, specializing in world takeover, for all the fledgling despot leaders who desire total domination. Let's face it, sister. The Nazis had perfected the best one, hadn't they? They'd taken the British crushing imperialistic method and given it a brilliant mechanized efficiency. What's a Machiavellian method? Are all the megalomaniacs, especially America, as you say? And so God bless our dear old Da for helping them. Brother, it's no good being squeamish or sentimental. It would take years to brain train people into anywhere of that capability. It was much better to buy a ready available brain drain from Germany, but, to keep up with the Russians. Let's face it. Before Hitler completely went AWOL from sanity, America had completely bankrolled him for billions. He was the great white hope, an industrial phoenix that had risen out of the ruins of war and the Wall Street crash. Even Britain's industrialists had backed him. They thought they were absolutely fantastic. So it was a small return for what was billions at a fire sale. A few thousand spies and scientists. Oh, Fräulein Ravenheart, you show me your SS tattoo and I'll show you mine, eh? Oh, come on, let's get back to Harley. I'm trying to cheer you up. Little boy blue who can't accept a truth or two, eh? And what about the medallion man at the Portobello Road? What about him? Ah, my little eye spy in the sky will look after him. Oh, you've got it all sorted, haven't you? My little hustler. Oh, it's all very plausible, isn't it? God, that planet-sized brain of yours, eh? It's dangerous. Ticking away constantly like a bloody clockwork orange. Jesus H. Christ, they'll probably miss you and kill me. The Judas Cross, Chapter 18. Sister, If we now know what our father was up to during the war, then why are we still digging around, trying to unearth some bodies from the past that may end up getting us murdered? Because, dear brother, we have things inside our heads, cranial conundrums, mind mazes, and our OCD father did everything for a reason. He was the most meticulous man of method that I have ever met. They are there for a purpose. So first we shall go back to Harley of Harley Street and see if she's cast any more clarity into this terrible dark noir of ours. And we shall keep on going back until she does. You know, sister, I was supposed to be in charge. This was my slideshow, remember? Not yours. You seem to have taken complete control of my stage management. Someone has to, brother. No good Harley taking all this time and tapping into a seam of something for you to wash it away in a tap room swilling ale. Thank you very much, sister. Harley was again measured and mandarin, somehow meek and mild, but musculating power and presence as always. As you mentioned, your father was a genius in cryptology and also a polyglot linguist. So much so that he seems to have outwitted our computers and algorithms. I can't quite understand it, but they can't crack the code. And let's face it, they've deciphered everything from ancient Aramaic to Aboriginal. It seems a brand new syntax, brand new speech, a mode of communication we've not seen before. Well, somebody must speak it. Somebody does. You. No, from Tasmanian tablets down to the Dead Sea Scrolls and even interplanetary. Because don't forget, we have algorithms to analyze anything that comes from outer space as well. But no, it's brand new rules. How you check the nut houses? Thank you, brother. Yes, he's not far wrong. We have checked them, and we have them all on file. We've deciphered many dialects of the delusional and the dangerous. Your brother's correct. Sanatoriums, I studied them. Their languages are developed over time into a brand new tongue themselves. So, Harley, what does this all mean? Okay, we have something trapped inside our heads, embedded. Well, obviously, I think it's for the purpose of secrecy. Let's face it, your father seems to have been in a privileged position, or shall we say a precarious position. These metals suggest that he's colluded with the very, very powerful forces. So maybe he was trying to hide something, or protect himself. Why don't we just leave things as they are and sort of, it might cause massive problems anyway if we disturb them. Oh, you chicken liver. That's typically you, isn't it, brother? It's not you, sister, that are getting their heads scrambled. No, I can assure you, Conrad, it's releasing a few Pollyanna poltergeists brings forth the positive. The subconscious is always optimistic. It's the shallow conscious that is in the negative, of course. Pollyanna memories usually bring forth pleasant things. But don't forget, we are trying to prize through, loose a few persistent pariahs. We must loose them. Oh, wonderful. And what happens if all these little demons and ghouls and ghosts are not exercised and they remain sort of, shall we say, semi-disturbed inside my head? They won't. That won't happen. You seem pretty sure of yourself, Harley. I am. So let's say our father, then, for instance, needed to encode something and sash it away secretly. Hypothetically, this old Judas, he was helping all these people to escape. He would definitely be in the position of helping himself to the trinkets and treasures, the goodies, documents, manuscripts. And the advantage also with him, he was a gypsy safe-cracking thief. So, as you can see, Harley, my brother holds no regard for father, but it has occurred to me that he might be right. Let's say he was in this position and was helping himself to various trinkets from top echelon persons. The information with skills of cryptology and linguistic skills, and also a secretary to papal, which I might add stands for secret servant. And he did have access all areas at this, shall we say, very unusual period of history. And the papal polygamy with the fascist Nazis and those ever so adulterous allies. Let us be candid. Our father after the war would have been their least favourite person to have around, or should we say, a catastrophe. And he was anonymous. We can see that by the medals, no inscriptions, nothing. But he'd got all the dirty little secrets, of course. What a fragile situation to find yourself in. And the powers that be may deem it necessary, of course, to dispose of you. They would be the least likely to mourn your passing, would they not? Quite right. Would any of these powers, especially the papal, take the risk of having such a Judas alive, do you think? Of course, it wouldn't be possible to carry this amount of paperwork or you wouldn't be allowed any recording devices, and they'd be pretty useless at that moment in time anyway to record this amount. So, you have to hold it all within your head. Or you have a brand new boy who would also not only be a fantastic, brilliant recording device, but all would fit your cover. A new identity, a new pseudo-family, as it were. Excellent idea. So carrying inside my head, ladies, thank you, is a very explosive set of files that could expose the corruption and the culprits, of course, of this world takeover project. That's fantastic, isn't it? So now not only I have the medals and the memoirs, and the double jeopardy to get myself completely killed. Oh, look, our father may have been in possession of some dangerous documents. It's hypothetical. And now, who is going to be around? It's all water under the bridge. Or more like blood under the bridge. 1 million barrels of it, or more. There's nobody going to be around. Remain totally anonymous. Who's going to be left? Anyone? Would there be anybody left? Would there? The Judas Cross, Chapter 19. Conrad's sister and her hippie friends, they played at hypnotherapy. Whereas Harley, she was the genius, the mind mechanic of a first order. She could take people down to the deep 5 and 6, catatonic coma stages. She placed her forefinger on her lips to tell Conrad to be quiet. And then, as there'd be a séance, she started whispering over and over into the subconscious of his sister, as there'd be a silent prayer, summoning the spirit. And suddenly, with a high-pitched scream, the room, as it was tearing in two, a child's voice came forth. Conrad looked in behind himself, as though the voice had been thrown. Harley gestured him back. It was a strange 5, somnambulism stage, positive hallucinations leading to real age regression. When Sister spoke again, Conrad couldn't recognize her voice. Harley kept on counting back. A strange sleep speech, garblings and ramblings, REM dream. And Harley struck like a fisherman, hooking the fish from the conscious dorsal stream. Conrad still thought it was gibberish. Harley continued teasing the fish forth from the depths of his sister's subconscious seabed, pulling it, reeling gently, plying. Sister was thrashing from side to side, riddling, trying to break the hook loose, but Harley continued coaxing her back. She was fighting, but eventually Eventually, she lulled over like a catatonic shark and lay there being stroked by the syllables and sentences of Harley. Then, after quiet, it came loud and clear. The language of Adam and Eve, the one that Conrad had heard deep in his sleep, that ancient tongue perfectly. Ah, the lingua franca, the twin talk. The two keys had been placed into the lock. Now he was able to understand his sister. Their secret syntax, so brilliantly programmed, that cryptophasia. Harley was amazed at the fullness, quietly shook her head. Conrad continued speaking with his sister until eventually they fell silent. And Conrad knew that he was losing her. She gently floated back, down into the deep six. After that, Harley began bringing her back to consciousness, ascending slowly like a scuba diver to avoid the bends. His sister was still fighting and struggling slightly, but she reeled in through her rhetoric skillfully until his sister broke the surface, gasping, mouth wide and eyes startled, like a free diver in the deep water. Blackout. She was buddied back to life. Bursting into tears and screaming, Harley gripped her, reassuringly, just gently, shaking her. It's okay, we've got it. We have it. Conrad's sister coughed as though she'd been in water. A sea woman saved from asphyxia and the abyss. Well, Brother Conrad, why don't we now save you? I can do it. I can stop this terrible anguish of yours. I can break you loose from this parental pariah. Let us do it. Plus a few of those negatives. Auto responses, come on. Yes. Conrad panic attacked, his mouth dry as sand. He stuttered slightly, as though in front of a freight train with the light blinding and the bell ringing. His fear. Harley placed her cool finger onto the third eye. It was like a kiss from a sleeping beauty. Frog Prince Conrad awoke to a doctor's dialogue patient. I can fix you, Conrad. I can mend this broken brain of yours. Maybe some other time. Conrad looked into Harley's soft brown eyes that emitted the perfect balance. Mental mechanics. Functioning so perfect. All the cogs and the movements like a Swiss skeleton clock. She advertised her foolproof sanity. Her dry, light hand touched Conrad's face. You stay in touch, pretty brain. Ooh, you stay in touch, pretty brain. Oh, she likes you, brother. She definitely likes you. Oh, be quiet. Come on. Let's go see what your private eye's up to, yeah? Or not. Of course he's up to something, brother, dear brother. We're going to take a little Thames River cruise to meet him. Down at the Royal College. We'll see the Cutty Sark. Oh, no, don't tell me. He's an old Navy blowhard. That's what I don't need, sisters. I see some sea shanty smelling of rum, talking of topsails and sharkskin shoes. He's not a Navy blow. We won't even see him anyway. So, stealth. So how do we communicate? Sixth sense? Sonar? Telepathically? What are we going to do? This is why I hide him, you see. He chooses the place and it becomes the clues, the answers, the conundrum. It's all there. It's wonderful. Talking of enigmas wrapped in silken secrets, should we be using twin talk? Practicing? Don't be silly. We don't need practice. Our dear old padre di famiglia has put everything perfectly in its place. For when and why to use. Come on, peel your pupils, let's pry the plot. Sister, you seem to be a little in advance of this game. Remember, if we disturb these gods and titans, I feel nothing will come of it. Oh, brother, there. Look, that's the first clue. Our guide, obviously. Where? The port wine stain, the ancient mark of Cain, Leviticus. None shall approach. It's the fire mark. God placed it upon Cain. We still carry it. The albatross of Abel hangs about all men. Guilt. Blood and fire. The armies, you see, of salvation. The Swiss Guard. I don't follow you. The armies and salvation, the badges of shame. I'm still not there, sister. A wandering fugitive walking alone in the earth, persecuted. The Jews, like Cain. The Catholic Church decreed that the Jews could stay, but they will forever carry the mark of Cain and shame about their countenance, a scar across their soul that they must always wear, like a yellow badge during the war. Our father, wandering fugitive, cursed by the Pope, no doubt. None should harm him, because obviously of the cash that was stored inside his head, but the mark was placed upon him. All that from a port wine stain. Oh, brother, I wish you'd learn to play the game. Come on, let's search the next clue. The Judas Cross, chapter 20. Oh, brother, you don't seem to be enjoying this at all. What's the matter with you? What do you mean, what's the matter with me? How can I take pleasure from something that may get us seriously murdered? You don't seem to understand the gravitas of this situation. If our old pater was issued with some papal bull or an edict, it carries, like to the curse of damnation. It's a bit like a fatwa. A callous courtesy would probably be extended to us. Is it not ringing like a death knell bell into your ears? These black nobility, their ancient medieval families that have been around since the dawn of crime, to them money is meaningless. It is pride, passion, power, privilege. Status to them is like sadism. They dish it out at school by mentoring each other in dueling scars, razor-sharp rapiers. They slash terrible scarification onto beautiful cherub cheeks. And this is to their friends and close-knit kin. You imagine what they might inflict on the flesh of their foe, sister. Oh, you're such a whimster. I'm not giving up now, till we've found the truth, cold and cruel as it may be. Look there forward at the bowsprit. I think that's the next one. There, Cutty Sark, the witch, Nanny, the white witch holding the ponytail, from the poem Tam O'Shanter. Meaning? Well, Cutty Sark rhymes with Joan of Arc, who also had her ponytail and her hair cut off in order to cross-dress as a male soldier. And she was burnt at the stake, beatified by the Pope. She was the mascot, the symbol to follow, used as a scapegoat by the English, obviously. A virgin vicarious redemption, carried for the sins of her foe or fellow man. I still don't see. Well, I mean, are you trying to portray our old padre as a saintly figure again? Because no doubt he wasn't. He'd be a Judas goat, a black Judas goat that led the flock to slaughter, not a scapegoat. No, brother, you're not quite getting it. The picture, part of the clue in the poem, is the three priests' hearts lay rotten black as muck. They're stinking vile in every nook. It's about betrayal. The triad is there again. You see? You know, brother, the Catholic Church is the oldest secret society in the world. Even upon death, they are there waiting at your bedside for you to cough out the last confession. Paying that penance in order for atonement. All of the secret services have been based on a similar principle. Not such as cruel torture, of course, but torment and ecclesiastical extraction of truth. It's an ancient way, and it was perfected. It's now become sort of common form place in questioning. I mean, did you ever see our father's skin, mainly his back? It had been whipped, possibly in self-mortification. His hands and his wrists also showed signs of scarification. That's why he wore those silly little fingerless gloves all the time. He may have even shown signs of stigmata. Well, I, for one, can definitely understand anyone nailing that old lizard to a cross. I mean, do you think he might have been involved in something a little risque? Thorn garters, hairy underwear. Let's say a little lick of the cat each day to keep the sins at bay, sister? Don't be silly, brother. No, our father's mendicant methods were probably, I don't know, some sort of, some way of holding himself to redemption. A fine, a fee for forgiveness, perhaps payment of penance for his awful past. Better to try and beg forgiveness than ask permission, eh? There were ancient orders and sects that engaged in this sort of thing to attain atonement, to, penitent of breviary. But they were spiritually outlawed by a papal bull. They came under suspicion, you see. I like the sounds of an asexual aesthetic appreciation society, then. Well, not quite that simple. I mean, castrati in most of them was mandatory. So not all plain chanting in the choir, eh, Brother Conrad? Anyway, let's say for argument our old padre was a member of one of these mendicant orders, tonsuring his testicles or tope, sister. Why would he do such a thing? What's the point? Well, normally it was to be done in readiness to serve one's supreme sovereign, or similar to the Pope. That's sacred service, and to give absolutely everything to one's divine majesty. The Chinese emperor had 20,000 tunics to attend to his desire in the Forbidden City, of course. Phew. Our father wouldn't do such a thing. To end up in the Vatican, would he? I just can't see him as a monk. Mendicant, sort of a mendicant monk, trapesting his life away. I can't see this, sister. No, come on, brother. Let's search for the third clue. It's the final one. He always leaves 3, the I Spy. So you've never ever seen this I Spy, P.I., then? Never. I think he keeps himself totally anonymous, just in case the game or the balloon goes up and you might be prosecuted. There, brother, look above us. This is a square rigger. Squire rigger. And squire meaning knight, second, nobleman. Or all 3 of these things. All the Pope's ambassadors, they have noble knights and landowners, the gallant, as they call them. Square rigger sails are second sails from the top, or the gallant. The next are the royal. It's topped off with a jack, flag. Now the Vatican has 2 jacks side by side, bicoloured flag. One white, one yellow. So what's this PI mean? One yellow could stand for a yellow jack. Naval terms means you're carrying a sickness, illness, or something malas. Also stands the colour for cowardice. White, of course, is the flag of truce. And it used to be the original colour of the Vatican. So what is PI saying? You see, they changed it in 1929, a new treaty and such by Mussolini. So he may be saying they took on board at that particular time with this illness or a double jeopardy of sorts. Oh, sister, since the dawning of time, the Vatican has been rife with scarlet scandals. Shall we not try and make one up? They're giving me the creeps. Lack of alcohol is giving you the creeps. But think what I Spy is saying to us. Heraldic flag, Two sides, two keys. You, me, what? Two-sided Pope. Janus. Double-headed. Could be father. Double agent. Working undercover. Could be both. Isn't it amazing, Citra? For all this time, these apprentices of Abraham, they still have total control over our consciousness. This Constantine credibility. 2,000 years later, this fragile fate of optimism still stands so strong, doesn't it? Not bad for a nonchalant nihilist who negates the nativity so vehemently, eh, brother? Didn't Freud once say that it's just an infantile illusion, personal phenomenon, like a sacred schizophrenia that has been sanctioned, whereupon if you have a secular schizophrenia, it's usually sectioned. Don't you think that all these religious humans, they're like fruitarians in the Garden of Eden? They gorge on the forbidden fruit, then regurgitate it back, in sort of hypocrisy to everyone else. As they say, it wasn't the apple in the tree, but the pear on the ground. And the serpents, well, they didn't have a leg to stand on. There speaks the vulgate voice of vulgarity. Veneration, please. The Judas Cross, chapter 21. The Roman god Janus, my brother. He has two faces and carried two keys, one for the mortal twin and one for the immortal twin, yes? Hence why two faces on the front side of the coin, one looking to the future, one looking to the past. You're losing me, sister? Well, it's similar to the Vatican flag, the two keys. One for here on earth, one for heaven. The Pope seemingly is able to spiritually transcend across the great divide and communicate with God, and then transcend back and communicate with us. And, well, brother, with so many spiritual souls all around you, perfect in every way, the celestial pristine palace, then you would need a lowly janitor, Janus, to take out the trash or the bodies, or bring them in. And on the reverse side of the coin is depicted the bow of a boat. So possibly what our I Spy PI is suggesting is that you have a two-headed, not traitor, but someone who, shall we say, is smuggling something in or someone out from the Vatican across the Tiber. And with so many secret passages leading from under the Vatican, especially in the lower strata regions, a labyrinth of passages, in the dungeons of the dead, the limestone caves of Rome, so many acropolises, all full of the dead, all holding the secrets. Well, yes, I suppose our father could have been a Janus moving things for a corrupt cardinal or two, a Nazi pope, colluding in that exodus of, shall we say, human bloodstock to the Americans that they so desperately wanted. I mean, let's face it, they even took Klaus Barbie, notorious, torturing murderer, bestial. Nobody ever wanted him. Nobody but a few fellow fascists, brother. All the cardinal compass points of Europe, all those different fascists. So you'd need a sort of a multifaceted face to fit all flavours and fetishes. My mind seems to be tessellating to torment here, sister. You know, brother, I can't help but think that our father was used as a bit of a blood of the lamb, shall we say. What do you meaning? What? You think he was used as what? A scapegoat? Could have been. I think of it. Oh, sister, you'd do anything, wouldn't you? Well, you can't start thrashing a king or a pope. Still, strangely, you have to somehow avail your guilt, pass it across, away from you, the penance, the pain, a little adulation with flagellation, shall we say. Sounds rather kinky. You're not thinking of somebody with the Beelzebub effect, are you? A voyeur? No, nothing too sordid or sadistic. No, brother. Just the scarping of sins. The penance has to be paid. Do you think of our Father as a punishing post? Oh, sister. Utter rubbish. I think you'd do anything to try and vindicate that old vagrant. Prove that he was whiter than light. He needed beating. He was a reptile. Needed beating daily for his sins. Hence why he was so scarred. Just deserved. No, brother. You see, there's something else wrong with this picture. This divine discipline that's taken with penitent prayer. It's usually administered to keep the 7 deadly sins, or some of them, at bay, which we now know are the 7 instincts of man and woman, don't forget. With lust being at the top of the list, that craving for carnality. All suggesting what, dear brother? Where is she? Where is who? The Jezebel, the femme fatale, she's missing. Remember the tragic triad. Where is the Delilah holding up the handful of hair, the ponytail, the mascot? From up forward on the bow, remember the white witch? To be burnt. The Judas, a Janus, and a Jezebel. It's always a little triad of trilogy. Ménage à trois. Heaven's sake, brother. Are you slow? Come on, let's get back and pick up your DNA results. Try and add another scale to this ever-enlarging snake skin, eh? So is this it? Is this my meaning of life? The arrangement of my mammalian molecules? It's a little bit of an anticlimax, isn't it? I expected some sort of sacred, sparkling chalice to be handed across, full of glittering blood. At least some wizard's wine. Here we have a few leaves of paperwork, disclaimers, a barcode. Utterly boring. Maybe boring to us, but to a database, or databases across the world, it's extremely interesting. Especially to use this evidence in case your blood be splattered across a murder scene, eh? Say things like that. You see, this shows your entire ancestry stretching back to the time when Methuselah was a boy. For a small payment, we have your mitochondrial map all printed out like a till receipt. Every spook and every spy base will have you. Instantaneous family tree for the whole wide world to see. If we can't fathom it out, we'll have to pass it across to Roger's little Asperger's quartet and see if he can spoof things up a bit. It's hardly a comedy, is it? Digging up dead bodies. In the past, we'll probably end up in their graves. Oh, brother. You know, this Catholic corporation that we're with here, it's without doubt the oldest multinational corporation in the world. It still has 1.2 billion investors, $180 billion annually. There's no wonder that so many people want to get their hands on this little profit-making principality. But do you know, when it was locked down for those 59 years, I was just wondering where all the revenues were going. Maybe to those Swiss mercantile mercenaries, papal protectorates, guarding everything and everyone forever and ever, amen, eh? 60 years of accumulated funds with interest, trillions of dollars, trillions, just enough to pay for a world war. And hurrah! Mussolini, Hitler, saviors, 1929, the world been devastated, the Wall Street crash, ready and ripe for a takeover, Pope Pius XI, failing in health, being cared for by one of Mussolini's associates. Ooh, how fortunate. And Pope Pius XII and his relation that were brokering all the deals. Oh, how wonderfully it all slid into place for them. So, brother, a brand new leader, a brand new pope, and a brand new kingdom. All that mazuma at their disposal. The fascists, the Nazis with their pact of steel. Eh? Maybe bad boys on the block. But the Catholic Church, come on. They'd shared their crusades with a lot worse. And they were already up to the bridles in blood anyway. The Judas Cross, chapter 22. So you see, my dear brother, at last the time had come to build a brand new Roman Empire, just like the one before with Constantine the Great. Mussolini, it is what he dreamed of. Okay, he had a partner or two. The Reich, religion. But at least it was seemingly going to last for 1,000 years. So who wouldn't take a little financial flutter on the greatest military war machine that the world had ever seen? What choice did the church have? The alternative, what? The Red Devils, the Bolsheviks? Faithless pagan dogs? This Prussian patronage. At least he was Catholic. So let's face it, crush or be crushed. One God, one religion, and death to the rest by burning or blitzkrieg. Either one would do. Yes? Sister, you have some strange ideas. And what about Pater? What should we do with him? Should he be beatified? Slave cracker? Slave trader? You're missing the monetary point of view here, brother. This was a chance for Mussolini, through treachery, treason, and treaties, and also with his pet monkey, as he described Hitler, to build a bright, new, shiny Roman Empire. And look, Empire America and Empire Britannicus were also throwing their weight and their money behind it. The perfect storm had arrived. The world was flat broke, apart from a few American billionaires and the Vatican. So, allow the tyrants of fascism to take their course. At first it looked fantastic. Nobody knew who or what they were. Catholics back in business. Yeah. Judas. Oh, come on. He always kept the money bag, the treasure of treason. Known to be a thief. No. A Judas, a Janus, and a Jezebel. Always the same. You need someone to blame. Come on. What's with the negativity, brother? A little positive thinking. Let's face it. The Catholic Church was the first multinational corporation the world had ever seen. So big on retailing in religion. So many international outlets. It would be perfect. Purveying away some of the Prussian packages. Domestic sort of diplomatic deliveries. Clerical correspondence. A perfect spy network. The only one in Europe. It enjoyed papal immunity. All written in code and Latin. Not dissimilar to what's written in our heads. I wonder, brother, if the news has yet reached the ever so righteous. Oh, how long they've been waiting for the 2 keys to be given back. What? What are you talking about? I'm talking about the Jesuits. The black nobility. Yes, But they sat there like a little inquisition of crows, Cossacks, all pecking at that dead carrion of correspondence. Tastes a bit salty now, all that murdered meat. Feel a little poisonous on the palate, eh? You've lost me. What game are you playing, sister? Mind explaining the rules? Well, think of a chessboard where all the pieces are bishops and every square is black. You're playing in the dark. So confusing. Impossible. What you need, of course, is some Morse coding into your ears, courtesy of our father, and then the Enigma X machine. Still not with you. Oh, brother. Bit like a army of ants. Can't be played without it. But what's the game? The game, brother, is the almighty game of life and death on the board of truth. A certain platform that never moves. It's the same game, all under the watchful eye of providence, divine or not. The pawns and the people, they matter not in their millions, they can die. The titans on the tectonic plates, they squabble, yes, but behind them, the gods, the masters of the money, of course. The four horsemen of the apocalypse, brother. I've been waiting. To the west, of course, is the red Mustang of America. To the east, the yellow China, Russia. To the south is the black horse of Arabia and Africa. And to the north, the pan-white horse of the Europeans. The titans of totalitarianism. The same game that's been played throughout history. Okay, we're now in the 30s. But America won. America took all. Empire America was built on feeding on the rest, gorging the fatted colonial caste that lay slaughtered and blooded. For the prodigal son to feast, and did he feast? Into a superpower with a supersized palate. But now, the four horses are back, super strong and super rich. Who will be their spoils? Or will they turn to cannibalism, consume themselves with greed? I think not. Phew, sister. So, well, brother, all we have to wait for now, which shouldn't be long, is your reception committee. Through your DNA, they should be here any day now. What are you talking about? What have you done? What have you done? The servants of the four horsemen, they've been waiting for you for quite some time, brother, for your arrival. Well, our arrival, basically. But mainly yours, because of course you possess what they want, and that is not just what's in your head, but the blood in your veins, with it being royal. Royal? What are you talking about, sister? I am talking, brother, about a very rich and powerful woman in the 30s that carried all these oligarchs that I have just mentioned like loose change in her purse. A papal duchess, a Delilah, who invested all the trillions through her husband's vast networks, through all the rest of the billionaires. Had such an aphrodisiac appeal. Could even tempt the Bishop of Rome. A little cardinal carnality, eh? Pheromones. Perfume on your prayer book. You know, brother, these gentlemen that are coming, they are the oldest diplomatic and secret service in existence. They used to be called the core, sort of cape and sword. I must say, many a contract has been signed with that sacred steel pressed against feeble flesh. Jesus Christ, what have you done? I think we're about to find out. The Judas Cross, chapter 23. Sister, this papal piffle of yours is starting to get on my nerves. Why in heavens do you think I am somehow related to a pope and have blue blood coursing through my veins? Well, you see, Roger and his Asperger's quartet, you know they work for the government geeks up in the spy base, Memworth Hill. Well, I asked them to just look into our family tree, and ours are completely different, of course. Mine is normally shaped and sized, but yours is somehow, shall we say, someone's given it a little pruning, pollarding. When we looked into it further, the branches, the twigs, they've all been brought back to the virtual nuttle. Someone obviously trying to stop a trace. And of course, now that he has the DNA, he's put everything back into its rightful place. And you are linked. And you are the illegitimate sprog of Rome's big C. Hence why we've now got the contingent of Jesuits flying in to welcome you back into their bosom, as it were. You're mad. You are completely mad. You don't think that I'm about to start joining the Jesuits and following in my father's blooded footsteps, do you? How the hell, anyway, did this old my father, not even my father, is he? How did he end up kidnapping me? Well, I don't think it was kidnapping. I mean, back in the bad old days, in the 30s, you were just a sort of a backdoor sprog, really. And, father was in charge as the Janus, come janitor, of putting things in and out of their place. Yeah, the bodies, shall we say, disposing of them, I would think. But everything that time broke loose, the moorings of hell itself. Let's face it, the Pope, he became the biggest inconvenience in Mussolini's and Hitler's world takeover plan, so he had to exit stage left. Everyone was, let's face it, he was demanding his money back at the box office in the greatest show ever been produced. And the American billionaires had put their money in. IBM, Ford, many others. They wanted the show to take place. The world takeover. They paid for it. So what happened under the orders of, shall we, when it's beat about the bush, it was the Black Pope, the general, that organized the killings, an Austrian anti-Semite. He wanted the Concordat to stand, both, and the Lateran Treaty. So hence your mother had to be disposed of, and the Pope had to be exiting stage left early. Yeah. Even the monk that had helped Hitler write Mein Kampf, another Jesuit, a Judas, he also had to bite the dust, trying to blow the whistle on Il Duce and Mein Führer. So many had to be taken care of. And our father? Well, dear father, he was of course working all sides, and he was in the perfect placement for a spy, cryptologist, polyglot. What better position than being, in the radio room, code-breaking room of the Vatican, the newly installed Marconi radio devices the Pope Pius XI thought were brilliant, perfect for preaching to his 2 billion parishioners. So he'd got everything around him, all the Enigma machines, the Morse code machines, even Braille, every single thing, to cipher and decipher. So for an OCD boffin, similar to Roger, perfect. He was in his element. In his spare time, of course, he was also rustling through the archives in the Vatican, and deciphering ancient texts for them. And then I think obviously he must have had a eureka moment. He found the method, the capability, not through repetition, I don't think. He was just, normally sort of to try and download parts of text, ancient text, Bibles, Qurans, is so boring and so time consuming that it's almost impossible for people. But of course, he suddenly found a capability to process this with 300 times the capability of a child's mind, the plasticity. That's exactly it. Whether it be with finger movements on Morse code or Braille languages, but suddenly he was able to self-hypnotize and take himself to level 6, slide open the door of his subconscious and download all the data onto the hard drive, which, of course, is the hippocampus. Sister Shrink, I say it's mad, but it's not a bad try. So where do I come in? Kidnapped. Well, the Jesuit at the time, in charge of tying up all loose ends, he was sort of ended up back in the Vatican, of course, with you, an illegitimate backdoor sprog. Nobody knew that. They just thought it may be a servant's child. At some later date, obviously, he was going to surreptitiously scupper you away to one of the Vatican orphanages, and then what happened? Well, come on, brother, it doesn't take much working out. Ideoglossia cryptophasia, twin talk. Our father realized that the capability, his new inputting device, JavaScript or whatever, worked absolutely perfect on a total empty mind, the recipient a child below the age of 2. And hey presto, in go the memories, all the secrets safe and sound. Oh, I don't believe it. So bloody Dr. Mengele, eh? There's no wonder my mind's screwed and scrambled, is there? So you see, this is why the Jesuit bloodhounds are now chasing your scent. So why have you done that? Why have you actually given them my DNA, flashed it out to every database so that they can come running, hunting me? I mean, come on. Are you totally mad? These people have had 2,000 years of total control, and now you have just handed them what? The Holy Grail. Oh, Christ Almighty. That's it, isn't it? Oh, you little scheming bitch. That was it from the very start, wasn't it? This was all about getting your hands on the information, the other half of my brain, wasn't it? That's it. Oh, come on, brother, don't look so glum. I mean, come on, someone's got to take world control. It may as well be the most powerful Christians on the planet. Anyhow, here we are. Harley and her little nutcrackers have been waiting for us. I've been waiting to interview you. Conrad suddenly stood and eyed the line of Jesuits. The center stood the Black Pope. Surrounding him were his 12 disciples. Their cape and sword had arrived. At last, the black nobility. The Judas Cross, Chapter 24. The Black Pope, with his 12 disciples, were in fact the 12 members of a jury, plus the judge. They were about to trial a person, or you may say persons due to the individual having a multi-personality disorder. They were under no illusion that the individual possessed a planet-sized brain with a genius level of intellect, which for the last 20 years of incarceration he'd been using to translate ancient and classical languages into Braille. The judge and jury were also very aware that even after 50 years of living in solitary confinement in a single cell, this mendicant monk was still starring at #1 in the horror movie hit parade. His accolade included paranoid schizophrenia, sadomasochism, nihilism, Nazism, grandiosity, pedophilia, and multiple murder, amongst other things. His DSM codes were falling off the chart. Today, a couple of his many personalities were casually conversing in their twin talk as brother and sister. Their host, having a 60-40 bisexual split, favored his feminine side. They did not. They were completely gender fluid. They conversed in their archaic language like Adam and Eve. The 20 or so varying psychotic drugs, first, second, and third generation, did precious little, apart from to bring on a dizzy drunkenness and scarlet the face bright red with pressure. However, they did create an LSD hallucinogenic capability which aided and abetted his slide door subconscious. He could open it at will and download massive amounts of data into his hippocampal region. This psychopathic superstar seemed to be able to captivate the jury with animal magnetism, mesmerizing them as though they were children with kaleidoscopes. They came transfixed into the many colors and characteristics of his persuasion. He was born into the Glaswegian Gorbal slums, only to be quickly orphaned. There his satanic soulmate began to simmer. It was switched on properly after he was jailed into the Leopard Rock Hotel, aka Strangeways, Manchester, at the young and tender age of 17. A slender, slight build, he'd been used and abused, buggered and beaten into horrific bestiality, handed around as a sexual toy, until he became a bitch for one of the big daddies. Then his personality had been formed. After 3 more brutal institutions, one being an old MI6 spy base used for torturing enemy agents during the war, then his psychosexual development was complete. After release, his satanic sibling lay dormant on a red-eye standby, staring back from its soul cage, waiting. His fractured brain ticked over at a constant level of survival savagery, possessing a 3-stage synesthesia. It solidified into terrifying tulpas of his mind's eye manifestations, all vocal and visual, each with the capability of existing existentially, and all of them having gender-fluid persuasions. The terrible triad of Judas, Janus, and Jezebel had been formed. Today, these 2 animations spoke together in their secretive Babel babble, but they were suddenly interrupted by sounds of ancient keys rattling into the locks of that soul cage from long ago. clanging like death knell bells, his two pseudonyms. From way back when, opening the gates again of Janus, he walked through with his Jezebel and Judas hand in hand into the paedophile playground on the pathway to perdition.